Chapter 206. Elder Zhang. Elder Zhang's medicine man Lu San hurriedly helped Elder Zhang up. But at this moment no one cared about Elder Zhang's condition anymore. Lu San could only help Elder Zhang out of the medicine hall in a sorry state. Well said, relieving. I've already said that Elder Zhang only has a few types of elixirs. Master, you didn't believe me. Cheng Bai was the first to applaud, but Zhan Li gave him a warning look. Then do you have a corresponding treatment method? Although Zhan Li was not well versed in medicine, Yun Sheng's words made some sense. It can't be considered a treatment method. I still need to conduct a clinical trial on Yi Baiming. The beast blood in his body has only been temporarily suppressed by me. I still need to perform acupuncture. Yun Sheng seemed to have become the modern goddess of medicine again. She was in high spirits as she spoke. As a doctor, it was a headache but also an exciting thing to encounter a new case. Regarding the conflict of beast blood, a normal doctor could not determine it at all. They could only deduce whether the beast blood itself was poisonous. They could not make a deduction based on the living habits and diet of the magical beast. Yun Sheng was a doctor and a summoner at the same time. Relying on her understanding of magical beasts, she was able to deduce the conflict of beast blood. This was a new medical concept that had never been proposed in the boundless continent. Clinical trial, what was that? Seeing that Zhan Li and the others were confused, Yun Sheng could only use practice to prove it. After getting Zhan Li's promise, Yun Sheng began the treatment. She originally wanted to dismiss the few people around her, but looking at their reactions, none of them were willing to leave. They were concerned about Shangguanta but also curious. Yun Sheng had said that if she succeeded in the treatment, Shangguanta would most likely break through. Yun Sheng had no choice but to start the treatment in front of everyone. She treated this group of people as medical observers. Describe the situation of the fighting energy in your body just now. Yun Sheng asked Yi Baiming. There's a restless qi in my body as if it's going to break out of my body. Yi Baiming's physique was very strong. Even he could feel such obvious fluctuations of hostility, let alone Shangguanta from earlier. It's because of the conflict of beast blood. Be careful, don't move. I'm going to perform acupuncture. Yun Sheng said as she took out 4 needles. When Yun Sheng took out the needles, the few people present, especially Yi Baiming's eyes lit up slightly. He was in a frenzy just now, he did not see Yun Sheng's needles. Yun Sheng's 4 seasons glass needles were very special. They all saw that the needles were a magic weapon refined with a special method. Yun Sheng skillfully identified several acupoints on Yi Baiming's body. Her needles were like moving clouds and flowing water. In a moment, several major acupoints on Yi Baiming's body were blocked. Every time Yun Sheng inserted a needle, Yi Baiming felt the burning sensation gradually disappear. Looking at Yun Sheng's hand, after inserting an acupoint, she would use the magic power to gently move the glass needle in her hand. No one knew that at this time, the needle in Yun Sheng's hand was greedily absorbing the hostility in Yi Baiming's body. This was the advantage of the dark magic soul. For others, the hostility that could make people go crazy was the favorite thing of the dark magic soul in Yun Sheng's body. Yun Sheng inserted a total of 4 needles on Yi Baiming's body. The dark magic soul in her body also swallowed a large amount of dark hostility. Soon, a black substance floated on the surface of Yi Baiming's body. That substance was unbearably smelly. Any warrior would know that it was the impurities and filth in the human body. Generally speaking, this was the effect of a warrior's bone marrow cleansing after their first beast blood fusion. However, the process of bone marrow cleansing would take at least a day and a night. How long did Yi Baiming take? It seemed to be less than a quarter of an hour, right? The conflict has disappeared. There is no more cramping pain in my abdomen. Yi Baiming only felt that his whole body was comfortable under the effect of Yun Sheng's needles. Not only that, but he also felt comfortable all over. His originally impetuous mood also calmed down a lot. Yun Sheng put away the needles, her face full of joy. There is a vigorous force in my body. I'll take a bath first. Even Yi Baiming himself could not stand the stench on his body. Baiming, how do you feel? Zhan Li's expression changed. Even though Zhan Li had seen countless people, he had never seen such a miraculous thing. Others might not feel it, but he could feel the change in Yi Baiming's body. That kid's cultivation was most likely. Zhan Li did not change his expression. He did not know if the little girl had seen through Yi Baiming's secret. However, even if she had seen through it, Zhan Li did not intend to pursue it. Talent, the heavens were really blessing him, Wuxuan Wuji. This little girl's medical skills were probably not even comparable to the imperial doctors in the palace. Zhan Li believed that such medical skills, not to mention Elder Zhang of the Medicine Hall. Even the imperial doctors of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion would not be able to do it. How many needles did that little girl use just now? It seemed like only 4 needles. Only 4 needles, and Yi Baiming's cultivation had increased. Zhang Li felt an impulse. If not for the fact that his disciple was present, he really wanted to ask Yun Xing to give him a few needles as well. Only then did Yun Xing put away the needles and rest for a moment. She was also recalling the needles just now. Just as she had expected, the hostility caused by the conflict of beast blood could be eliminated with the divine soul healing needle passed down in her family. There were a total of 4 needles. If she maintained the current state, she would probably only need 1 needle. Fortunately, Yi Baiming had a tyrannical constitution. Otherwise, she really did not dare to blindly test it out using people. After drinking a bottle of meditation water, Yun Xing immediately began to treat Shangguan Ta. After a round of treatment, Yun Xing indeed cleared away the remaining hostility in Shangguan Ta's body around dawn. Treating Shangguan Ta was much easier than treating Yi Baiming. The dark magic soul in Yun Xing's body grew by another circle. It looked like it was about the same as the other 4 types of magic souls. Yun Xing believed that if she used the dark thorns now, the effect would definitely be much better than before. The evil qi in his body has already been cleared. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Although the evil qi has caused him to be delirious, it has also helped him open up a few vital martial veins in his body. If nothing unexpected happens, he has already broken through to the martial marquis realm. Yun Xing had just finished speaking when she raised her head and discovered that everyone around her was looking at her as if they were looking at a monster. He broke through with just a few needles? Qingbai stuttered. Yun Xing said unhappily, "Do you want me to give you a few needles too? Heavens, this is too exaggerated. What kind of needles are you using? Too amazing. Come, give me a few needles." Qingbai's face was drooling as he moved closer. "I think you don't need needles but a beating." Yi Baiming, who had changed his clothes, narrowed his eyes and walked in. As he ridiculed Qingbai, his gray eyes darkened. He looked at Yun Xing with an indescribable expression. Chapter 207. After being scolded by Yi Baiming, Qingbai instantly turned from a ruffian to a little white rabbit. He shrank to the side and did not move at all. Yun Xing, who originally thought it was very funny, was stared at by Yi Baiming like this. She felt a chill in her heart. She couldn't have been exposed, right? However, she still had a calm expression on her face. She prescribed a few herbs for the medicine hall's herbalist to decoct the medicine. Seeing Yun Xing's indifferent expression, Yi Baiming's heart became even more suspicious. Just now, when Yun Xing was performing acupuncture, he had an illusion that the young girl in front of him was the little wild cat from Banana Leaf Village. The same stubborn temper, the same arrogance. Was it her? Yi Baiming thought to himself. Just now, when Yun Xing was performing acupuncture, Yi Baiming felt a sense of familiarity. If he remembered correctly, the little wild cat was also good at using needles. However, when he looked at Yun Xing's figure and age as well as her voice, they were all different from the little wild cat in his memory. It was no wonder that Yi Baiming was able to recognize Yun Xing. Not to mention that his eyesight was not good before the Yun Xing in front of him, because she had experienced a breakthrough, her figure and appearance had changed quite a bit. During this period of time, she had undergone a period of cultivation in Wuxia Limitless School, and her figure and appearance had changed. Just now Yi Baiming also hugged Yun Xing. He weighed her in his hand, and the feeling was completely different from the little wild cat that was a little clumsy in the past. She was a lot heavier and also a lot rounder. The feeling was quite good, but no matter how he looked at it, she looked like she was 11 or 12 years old and definitely not 8 years old. On the boundless continent there were many doctors who used needles. Thinking of this, Yi Baiming could not help but sigh in his heart. Just at this time, Shangguan Ta woke up and interrupted Yi Baiming's thoughts. Seeing that Shangguan Ta had woken up, Yun Xing took the initiative to get up and leave. Inside the medicine hall, a storm was brewing. Although Shangguan Ta had woken up, Zhan Li's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. It was time to settle old scores. Yun Xing walked out of the medicine hall and walked toward the inner hall unhurriedly. Zhang Clan's father and son, you're on your own now. Master, senior brothers, why are you all here? Shangguan Ta had experienced life and death after the beast blood conflict. Bujiu Xiao told Shangguan Ta the whole story. After Shangguan Ta heard it, he knew that he had gone mad. Shangguan Ta was filled with regret when he learned that he had injured many of his junior brothers from the other martial arts school. He also told Combat Strength about Elder Zhang's promise that the blood cloud beast's blood was absolutely harmless, how he had spent 10,000 gold coins to exchange for a portion of the beast's blood, and how several of the inner hall disciples had also bought the beast's blood. After Combat Strength learned that Elder Zhang had disregarded the safety of the martial artists in the martial arts school in order to amass wealth, he ordered people to find the martial artists who had bribed Elder Zhang and punish them severely. As soon as Combat Strength gave the order, there was a commotion outside the medicine hall. Walking out to take a look, he saw Luo Qing leading more than 100 female martial artists in front of the medicine hall. After they learned that Elder Zhang had lost his power, those female martial artists who had been humiliated by Zhang Zipo also told Combat Strength about their humiliation. Luo Qing even told Combat Strength about Lianxiang's humiliation in the early years. For a moment, the cries and wails of the female martial artists gave Combat Strength a headache. Combat Strength did not know that Zhang clan's father and son dared to be so reckless. He flew into a rage and immediately sent people to capture Elder Zhang and Zhang Zipo. The martial artists who went to capture them quickly returned and reported that Elder Zhang had already fled to the Jade Capital's Medicine Emperor Pavilion with Zhang Zipo. Master Elder Zhang and Medicine Emperor Pavilion's Cheng Sihai are said to be related by marriage. I think Elder Zhang must be thinking of borrowing the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's power to avoid the martial arts school's pursuit. Bu Jiuxiao was very familiar with the situation in the Jade Capital. With a little deduction, he knew where Elder Zhang had gone. Martial artists outside the Medicine Emperor Pavilion were like magicians outside the temple. In order to respect the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's treatment of martial artists over the years, there was an unwritten rule in the martial arts schools of the continent that no one could disobey. No martial artist could force their way into the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Elder Zhang was sure that Combat Strength would not dare to bring people into the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, which was why he had fled there. Old man, he really thinks that by hiding in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, I can't do anything to him. Jiuxiao used the sect order. No matter what method you use, you must capture Zhang clan's father and son, dead or alive, Combat Strength said sternly. Yi Baiming, Qing Bai and Bu Jiuxiao looked at each other. It seemed like Combat Strength was really angered this time. Once the sect order was issued, it meant that hundreds of thousands of sect disciples in Zhou State had to listen to it. If there were sect disciples who could complete the mission given by the sect order, they could also request Wuxia Limitless School for a matter in the future. These sect disciples, from peddlers to hunters and merchants, added together they were a powerful force. From the moment Combat Strength issued the sect order, Zhang clan's father and son were no different from dead people. A few days after the news of Combat Strength issuing the sect order spread, there was news very quickly. Zhang Zipa was dead. This guy was also not afraid of death. He hid in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion and did not change his lust. When he went out to sleep, he was found dead on a woman's stomach. A few days after Zhang Zipu's death, Elder Zhang went crazy, and because of this, he even alarmed the medicinal fragrance of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. In just a few days, the Zhang clan's father and son had died and gone crazy. This kind of result surprised Yun Sheng, and also allowed her to experience the strength of Wuxia Limitless School. However, Yun Sheng did not take this matter to heart. After saving Shengguan Ta, the dark magic soul in her body had absorbed too much evil qi, so she needed to meditate and fuse with it. Once she fused with it, a day and night unknowingly passed. She even forgot about her morning, afternoon, and night training. After a while of breathing in and out, Yun Sheng slowly opened her eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. The sky outside was already bright. She looked at the hourglass and saw that a day and night had already passed. She got up and walked out of the dormitory. Just as she opened the door, she was shocked by the scene outside. What was going on? Big sister, you're finally out. It wasn't easy for us to stop them. These people are all here for you. Lei Hu and Gufeng, one on the left and one on the right, were like door gods, blocking the people outside. Because there were too many people, Gufeng had no choice but to use the light ball of heaven to barely stop the crowd from rushing in. Outside Yun Sheng's dormitory, there were many eager martial warriors. With a rough count, there were no less than a few hundred people. Yun Sheng suspected that more than half of the people from Wuxia Limitless School had rushed here. Among them, there were martial warriors from the inner and outer halls. These people had all come because of her reputation. It turned out that during the period when Yun Sheng was fusing with the dark magic elements, Shengguan Ta accidentally leaked out that because of Yun Sheng's acupuncture, he had broken through to the martial realm. When the news spread out, the entire Wuxia Limitless School went crazy. Their minds were filled with only one thought: acupuncture. After breaking through to the martial realm, Yun Sheng's popularity in Wuxia Limitless School reached its peak in just one day and night. Chapter 208. Looking at the countless pairs of passionate eyes, Yun Sheng finally understood what it meant to become famous overnight. For a martial artist, the martial realm was greater than the heavens. Especially when Shangguanta broke through the bottleneck of the martial saint realm and became a martial marquis. For the martial artists on the continent, from the beginning, every time a martial artist broke through to the martial realm, it would take them from 1 to 10 years. After reaching the martial saint realm, some people would even stay in the martial realm for decades. Shangguanta broke through overnight, causing a sensation in the Wuxia limitless school, one could imagine. The development of the situation had far exceeded the expectations of the deputy curator. In the end, it was still the cold-faced Bu Jiuxiao who came out and chased all the martial artists away. You are Yen Yun, right? The deputy curator invites you to the medicine hall to discuss something important. Bu Jiuxiao's attitude towards Yun Sheng was also very respectful. Yun Sheng seemed to have expected this result and arrived at the medicine hall at a leisurely pace. After Elder Zhang went crazy, no one took care of the medicine hall. The huge medicine hall was now empty. I called you here today because I want you to help me take care of the medicine hall. In addition, I also want you to help me make blood cloud beast blood to help the martial artists in the dojo safely fuse with the beast blood. Today, Battle Strength could be considered to have completely put down his position as the deputy curator. He earnestly discussed with Yun Sheng. In his eyes, Yun Sheng was no longer an ordinary devil apothecary. If it was in the past, Battle Strength would never believe that a 7 or 8-year-old girl could take care of the dojo's medicine hall. However, Yun Sheng's performance that day had broken the restriction on her age. Deputy Curator Qi, I'm not a member of the dojo. I'm afraid I can't accept your appointment. What a joke. There were no less than 500 people in the Wuxia limitless school. If she were to treat everyone with needles and wash their bones, wouldn't she die of exhaustion? Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly. Other than giving you the same remuneration as Elder Zhang, all the medicinal herbs you use in the medicine hall will be free. This time, Battle Strength could be considered to have put in a lot of effort. This condition was very attractive. For the current Yun Sheng, the reward was not the most attractive thing, but the fact that she could use the medicinal herbs for free was very tempting. The Wu Profound Limitless Hall had a long history of thousands of years. Other than the various battle skills stored in the hall, there were also various precious medicinal herbs. Among them, there were some precious and saint-rank medicinal herbs that Yun Sheng had never come into contact with before. Yun Sheng pondered for a moment. In the end, she could not resist the temptation of combat power. In addition to this, I also need to have absolute freedom. I don't need to participate in the morning, afternoon, and night training. Other than that, I have another condition. Apart from the remuneration in herbs, I also need a sect token. Combat power could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This little girl was so black-hearted, the moment she opened her mouth, she asked for the sect medallion. That was the sect medallion of the Wu Profound Limitless School. She thought that it was a rotten cabbage on the street. Once the order was issued, the entire sect would have to listen to her orders. You're asking for too much. Combat power was unwilling. Deputy Curator Qi, it's just a sect medallion. I promise that I won't use it to commit crimes. But you can obtain hundreds of students who are one level above the martial realm. That's hundreds of people, not just a few. Yun Sheng blinked her eyes. Her small mouth seemed to be smeared with honey. The words that came out of her mouth made people like Combat Power, who were shrewd, unable to help but be moved. If all the martial artists could go one level above the martial realm, the Wu Profound Limitless Hall would definitely be able to win by surprise in the exploration of the divine artifact in a few years. Combat Power pondered for a moment. Finally, he clenched his teeth and agreed to Yun Sheng's request. After successfully obtaining a sect medallion, Yun Sheng was also in a good mood. At the same time, she also told Combat Power that not all martial artists in the martial realm could rely on the blood of the blood cloud beast and acupuncture to break through the martial realm. According to each martial artist's martial realm and physique, she still needed to examine each martial artist's body before she could determine whether or not she could help them fuse. Yun Sheng also checked Combat Power's body while she was at it. It was a pity that with Combat Power's cultivation, he was already unable to break through the martial realm through ordinary beast blood fusion. With his strength at the peak of martial ancestor, Yun Sheng's 4 seasons colored glass needles were still unable to pierce his body. However, Yun Sheng still used acupuncture to treat some of Combat Power's old injuries that he had left behind on the battlefield in his early years. Combat Power saw that Yun Sheng's formations were truly exquisite and felt even more respect in his heart. This old man is already so old, but I don't want to break through the martial realm. Instead, your acupuncture technique is very strange. I would like to ask you for a favor. Combat Power hesitated for a moment, then suddenly opened his mouth to ask. Deputy Curator, you only need to instruct me. Since I've received money, I'll help you eliminate disasters. However, the remuneration for saving people will be calculated separately. Yun Xing blinked her eyes. Combat Power helplessly smiled. This little divine doctor was truly not easy to fool. Then, Dr. Yin, please follow me to a place. Combat Power did not hesitate and immediately ordered people to prepare a carriage. After inviting Yun Sheng onto the carriage, they rushed towards a certain place in Yujing City. When the carriage landed, Yun Sheng looked out and could not help but be stunned. She did not expect that Zhang Li would bring her to this place. Wanning Alley, Marshal St. General's residence. Seeing Yun Sheng's astonished expression, Combat Power explained, "This is Zhou State's Marshal St. General's residence. I invited you here today to treat an old friend of mine." That old friend is someone from the Yun family. Yun Sheng still had some grudges against the general's residence. Yun Sheng clearly remembered when Yun Songhai opposed her parents' marriage and chased Yun Ba out of the house. At the same time, he swore a heavy oath. A large part of the reason why her father was in such a miserable state was because of the general's residence's heartlessness. Yun Sheng had once said that as long as her father did not wake up, she would not enter the general's residence. "You are a citizen of Yujing City, so you should have heard of my old friend's name. He was the same as me in the early years, a valiant general of Zhou State's battlefield. He is the second son of the Marshal St. General Yun Ba Yun Songlong. To men, the camaraderie formed during the war was the strongest. Before Combat Power left the imperial court and entered Wushuan Limitless School, he was sworn brothers with Yun Songlong. The two of them could be said to have eaten and lived together and were extremely close. During their last battle, they were ambushed by the enemy. Yun Songlong broke through the enemy's encirclement and let Combat Power escape first. However, he was ambushed and almost died. After that, even though Yun Songlong was saved, his hands were crippled. Even the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's reclusive Wen De Guo was helpless against Yun Songlong's hands. It was also because of his crippled body that Yun Songlong was unable to recover from the setback and rarely appeared in public. The Yun residents had two outstanding talents, but in the end, one went missing and the other became crippled. Every time the citizens of Yujing City brought up this matter, they would sigh endlessly. After Yun Sheng came to Yujing City, she gradually learned about this matter from Dr. Fan. Yun Sheng did not have much feelings for this second uncle of hers, but he was still her second uncle. She heard from her father that her second uncle had the best relationship with him when they were young. If her father was still awake, he probably would not wish to see his second brother unable to recover from the setback and be dispirited for the rest of his life. With such thoughts in mind, Yun Sheng temporarily put away her hostility and followed Combat Power to the Marshal St. General's residence. Thank you for Egg and 7 Treasures for your tips. It's a new month and I have some monthly votes at home. Remember to spread them around. Chapter 209. The last time Yun Xing came to the general's residence was more than a year ago. At that time, her clothes were ragged and she had just left Banana Leaf Village. She was just a poor little sorcerer who came to seek refuge in the general's residence. When she arrived at the entrance of the Marshal St. General's residence, she was ridiculed by Tang Yu's dog. But now that she had entered the general's residence again, she was already a respected elder of the Wushuan Everlasting School's medicine hall. This was something that Yun Sangxue and her son would never have dreamed of. The guards at the door were obviously very familiar with Zhang Li. When they saw him, they respectfully greeted him as the deputy director. "Second brother, are you all right? There is a new doctor in the martial arts school's medicine hall. Her medical skills are very high. I brought her here to take a look at second brother." Even though the Medicine Emperor Pavilion had already declared that Yun Songlong's disability was incurable, Zhang Li still did not give up. All these years, every time he met an outstanding doctor, they would bring him to the Marshal St. General's residence. But there was no follow-up. The guards of the general's residence were also used to this. But when they looked at Yun Sheng again, suspicion appeared on their faces. The doctor that Zhang Li brought this time was a little too young. In terms of appearance, she seemed to be about the same as young Master Tang Yu of the general's residence. At this age, the young master of the residence only knew how to eat, drink, gamble and fight. Zhang Li did not have any intention of blaming the two. If he had not seen Yun Sheng's medical skills, he would definitely not believe that this little girl in front of him had such amazing medical skills. After asking around, he found out that Yun Songlong was in the residence. He brought Yun Xing directly to the courtyard where Yun Songlong lived. The Martial Saint General's residence was indeed worthy of being a general's residence. The interior structure was simple and elegant, with tall gates and wide courtyards and neatly trimmed trees. Yun Xing walked smoothly along the way. Although she did not see anyone along the way, Yun Xing could faintly sense that in an unknown corner, there were pairs of vigilant eyes watching her surroundings. Just as she walked a few steps into the residence, an old man came in front of her. When Zhanli saw him, he hurriedly bowed. "Old General." The person who came was the famous Martial Saint General of Zhou State, Yun Ba. He was his own grandfather? Yun Xing lowered her head and secretly sized up Yun Ba. This was the first time she had seen the legendary Martial Saint Old General. Yun Ba was about 70 years of age. After many years of fighting on the battlefield, his face was as rough as old tree bark. He had a square face, dark purple skin and gray hair. The most intimidating thing about the old general was his eyes. Even though his eye sockets were deep and filled with wrinkles, one could feel the murderous aura emanating from them just by looking at them. "Combat strength, you're here. What kind of doctor did they find to treat Songhai this time? You have to take care of such a big place like Wushuan Limitless School, and you still have to worry about him." Yun Ba chuckled and stroked his beard. He had watched combat strength grow up, and had also watched him overcome all obstacles to reach his current position. If the disaster on the battlefield hadn't happened in his early years, he probably wouldn't have left the military camp. He would definitely have grown up with Yun Songlong to become the most dazzling generals in Zhou State. Unfortunately, the old general's eyes darkened, and he looked again at the doctor beside combat strength. His gaze was sharp, and he immediately noticed the magic scepter at Yun Sheng's waist. When he saw the scepter, his expression changed slightly. The incident with Yun Songhai back then had caused the entire Yun residence to harbor a strong enmity towards magicians. Combat strength knew this as well, but why did he bring a magician to the general's residence today? Seeing a layer of anger surface on Yun Songhai's face, Zhanli hurriedly explained, "Old General, this is a doctor that our medicine hall invited. Don't look at her young age, her medical skills are very superb." Magicians were prevalent in Zhou State in recent years. Normally, the manners of third-rank officials and above would have a few assistants, and there was no lack of magicians among them. However, the Martial Saint General's residence didn't have a single magician. The reason for this was related to the eldest son of the general's residence, Yun Songhai, who had been away from home for many years. "She's a doctor? Then why is she still wearing a magic scepter?" Yun Ba glanced sideways at Yun Xing. Ordinary people would be scared out of their wits by Yun Songhai's glare, but Yun Xing wasn't afraid at all. Instead, she stared back at Yun Ba as if she was competing with him. "Old General, this child is practicing both magic medicine and ancient medicine." It wasn't that combat strength didn't know that Yun Ba was prejudiced against magicians, but Yun Xing's medical skills had won him over, so he temporarily put aside his misgivings. "That's ridiculous. I've never heard of someone learning both magic medicine and ancient medicine at the same time. Furthermore, she's still so young. It's already difficult for her to master just one, let alone both at the same time." What Yun Ba hated the most was this kind of learning attitude. In the early years, when Yun Songhai was still young, he pestered him to practice both magic and martial arts. His heart softened and he agreed. Who would have thought that this would create an opportunity for Yun Songhai to switch to magic? "Old General, I didn't believe it at first, but this child is indeed here." Combat strength was afraid that Yun Ba would unwillingly chase Yun Xing out. Then Yun Songlong wouldn't have a chance. He explained everything that had happened a few days ago at Wushuan Everlasting School and how the disciple had gone berserk. Yun Ba listened with a skeptical expression. "Are you sure she came up with this on her own? I've never heard of this kind of treatment method." Yun Ba still didn't believe it. "If you don't believe me, then I'm not willing to treat you." Yun Sheng couldn't be bothered with Yun Ba's resentment. This old man looked so vicious, so she couldn't be bothered with him. After speaking, she turned to leave. "You little girl, you really don't have any respect for your elders." Yun Ba was also angry. He was already so old and held a high position, but today he actually had to give in to a little girl. This made him extremely anxious. This old man and young man were both so stubborn even though they had such bad tempers. He couldn't persuade them left or right, and just as he was in a difficult position. "Father, quickly come over. Second brother's illness is acting up again and he's venting his anger. I can't hold him back." Yun Sangshua hurried over with two maids. Her face was agitated and she looked very flustered. When she saw combat strength, she nodded at him as a greeting. When Yunba heard this, he no longer had the mood to quarrel with Yun Sheng. He rushed to the inner courtyard in a panic. Yen Yun's second brother's hysteria is acting up again. Since you've already come to the general's estate, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Just give me some face and go in to see my second brother first. He is a pitiful person. Combat strength was arrogant and unyielding. He had never begged anyone so humbly before. At this moment, his eyes were red and his face was full of worry. It turned out that Yun Songlong's physical disability wasn't the only thing that had troubled him all these years. What was more serious was that after that battle, he had never recovered from the trauma to his heart. At this moment, a beast-like roar came from the inner courtyard. Combat strength couldn't hold it in any longer. He didn't care if Yun Sheng agreed or not. He grabbed Yun Sheng and rushed to the courtyard where Yun Songlong lived. Chapter 210. Yun Sheng was unwillingly brought to the courtyard where Yun Songlong lived. The courtyard was in a mess. The guards and maids of the Yun residence were all hiding far away. Even Yun Sangxue only dared to watch from afar. Only Yun Ba rushed into the room with an ashen face. The bestial roar came from Yun Songlong. Not long after Yun Ba rushed into the room quieted down. Second brother? Zhan Li also followed him into the room. Yun Sheng was also brought in by him. I won't treat someone who doesn't trust me. Yun Sheng was also a little annoyed. However, the moment she entered the room and saw the man who had been restrained by Yun Ba, she suddenly felt a lump in her throat and couldn't say a word. It was as if a storm had passed through Yun Songlong's room. The bed, table, tea set, everything within reach had been smashed to pieces. Yun Sheng's father, Yun Songhai, was 35 years old this year. Yun Songlong was his second brother and was 1 year younger than him. But the man in front of her looked to be in his 40s, much older than his actual age. His hair and beard were messy, and his clothes were stained with mud and blood. But even so, Yun Sheng still recognized this second uncle of hers at a glance. Because Yun Songhai's figure, appearance and even voice were very similar to her father's. Yun Sheng turned around and thought that her father had woken up and was standing in front of her. They were too similar. In front of someone who looked almost exactly like her father, Yun Sheng couldn't bear to be ruthless. Father, is second brother all right? Yun Sangxue walked in when she saw that the room had quieted down. She saw Yun Sheng standing side by side with Zhan Li and also noticed the magic scepter on Yun Sheng's body. A layer of disgust appeared on her face. Third sister, she's the doctor I invited. She is here to treat second brother. Ever since Yun Songhai left home, Zhan Li and Yun Songlong addressed each other as brother and sister. Zhan Li still hoped that Yun Sangxue would speak up for him, but who would have thought that Yun Sangxue would just sneer. Big brother Qi, third sister is very grateful that you are concerned about my second brother's condition. But my second brother's illness, especially his hysteria, is already incurable. Even when Daiguoshu can only ensure that it does not worsen over the years. The little girl in front of you has an unknown background. She's both a sorcerer and a healer. She's neither fish nor fowl, so how can she treat my second brother? Yun Sangshue's tone revealed a strong hostility. Yun Sangxue didn't recognize Yun Sheng, but she subconsciously felt hostility towards Yun Sheng. In other people's eyes, Yun Sangshue's words sounded like she was concerned about her second brother and worried that Yun Sheng was some kind of Mongolian doctor. But the meticulous Yun Sheng heard another layer of meaning. Yun Sangxue was extremely unwilling for someone to treat Yun Songhai's illness. She even hoped that Yun Songhai's condition would worsen. In the general's estate, the old Marshal Saint General was aging day by day because of his two sons. Yun Songhai's whereabouts were unknown and Yun Songlong was in this state. As long as he didn't recover, Yun Sangxue would be able to monopolize the general's estate. Yun Ba was probably the only one who couldn't see through her ambitions. They were siblings from the same father and mother, but Yun Sangxue actually had such wild ambitions. Yun Sheng couldn't help but feel bitterly disappointed. Since Yun Sangxue didn't want to treat him, Yun Sheng had to treat him. Moreover, she could also see that Yun Songhai's illness wasn't simple. The national physician couldn't treat him because he mistook Uncle Yun's illness for hysteria. Using the methods and herbs used to treat hysteria naturally wouldn't be able to treat him. As the saying goes, prescribing the right medicine for the illness. If one couldn't even accurately judge the illness, how could they treat it? That was why Yun Songlong's illness had been repeated over and over again all these years without any progress. When Yun Sheng said this, everyone in the room was dumbfounded. Even Zhan Li couldn't help but break out in cold sweat because of Yun Sheng's words. This lass's tone was so arrogant. She actually said that the national physician of Zhou state had misjudged the illness. He was the national physician of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion and had stopped practicing medicine for many years. Back then he had reluctantly agreed to treat Yun Songlong because of Yun Ba. Yet Yun Xing said that he had misjudged the illness. Look, I already said that she's a quack. She dares to question the diagnosis of the national physician. How old is she? She's really audacious. Yun Sangxue rejoiced in Yun Sheng's misfortune and waited for her to be chased out of the general's estate. Everyone makes mistakes and the national physician isn't an exception. He judged it to be hysteria because the symptoms of hysteria are mental confusion and abnormal behavior. Uncle Yun's behavior does seem like he has hysteria, but what he actually has isn't hysteria. It's post-war trauma. Yun Xing didn't feel angry when she was questioned by everyone. Ignorance is blameless. The term post-war trauma was probably unheard of in the boundless world for thousands of years, let alone seeing it. When Yun Xing saw Yun Songlong, she initially thought that he had hysteria because his symptoms were too similar to hysteria. However, she asked Zhang Li and found out that Yun Songlong had been taking medication for hysteria for many years and there hadn't been any improvement. Recalling that Yun Songlong only got this disease after the war, Yun Xing recalled that when she was in the Americas in her previous life, she had met a few soldiers from Country M when she was doing free medical treatment for the International Red Cross Association. After participating in the war against Country Y, they had returned to their country. Even though they were healthy, they had all shown symptoms similar to hysteria. Yun Sheng's final diagnosis was post-war trauma. Father, quickly chase this liar out. What post-war trauma? I've lived for 30 years and I've never heard of it. Yun Sangxue ordered someone to chase Yun Xing out. Zhang Li tried to dissuade her, but he was reprimanded by Yun Sangxue instead. It doesn't matter if you don't believe me, but I can tell you with certainty that post-war trauma is more or less present in any soldier who has participated in a war, especially one where there were heavy casualties. However, Uncle Yun's condition is more serious because of the double blow to his body and mind. Yun Xing glanced at Yun Ba. On the battlefield, corpses littered the ground. Sometimes, even the innocent women and children of other countries were killed. Anyone who saw this scene would definitely be traumatized. He definitely knew about Yun Ba, who was once a general of Zhou state, and Zhang Li as well. Therefore Yun Sheng's words caused the two of them to sink into deep thought. A few guards from the Yun residence had already rushed over. They pushed and shoved Yun Sheng, wanting to chase her out of the courtyard. At this moment Yun Ba suddenly said, "Wait, let her see, take a good look. Little girl, if you can't figure it out, don't blame this old man for being impolite." Although Yun Ba's words were still very strict, his gaze had faded from the initial disgust and harshness. His attitude towards Yun Xing had also improved. Yun Xing's words just now had touched on a secret that he had hidden in the depths of his heart for many years. Chapter 211. Since even Yun Ba had spoken, there was nothing Yun Sangxue could do even if he wanted to chase Yun Xing away. Yun Songlong was still in a state of delirium. He had a crazed look on his face and could only be forcefully restrained by Yun Ba to ensure that he did not harm anyone else. Let me make this clear first. I am a dual practitioner of magic medicine and ancient medicine. When I treat him later, I will use a combination of magic and ancient medicine. There is no need to make a fuss. Yun Xing knew that magic could not be used in the Yun residence. This was very similar to Wushuan Wuji school. But now, for Yun Songlong's illness, Yun Ba had no choice but to break this precedent. Taking out the bewitching bone scepter, Yun Xing began to chant. Her lips moved and a gentle light shone on the scepter. Elementary water magic, cloud dream ice slumber. Yun Xing needed to check on Yun Songlong's condition, so she had to calm him down first. A light blue, ice-cold water vapor enveloped Yun Ba and Yun Songlong. Father. Yun Sangxue was afraid that Yun Xing would hurt his father and wanted to stop her. Don't worry, she has no ill intentions. Due to his prejudice against magicians, Yun Ba had almost never used any magic to heal his injuries. Usually, even if he was seriously injured, he would only swallow some pills. This was the first time he had faced a healing magic. Being surrounded by this slightly glowing water vapor, Yun Ba felt much calmer. Yun Songlong, who was originally restrained by him, also stopped roaring and moving. Yun Xing took the opportunity to let Yun Ba release Yun Songlong. She walked in front of Yun Songlong and looked at him at eye level. A golden light flashed across Yun Xing's eyes. Young General Yun, tell me what you saw. Tell me. Yun Xing's voice was very gentle and her words were also very slow. Modern medical technology was much more advanced than the boundless world. Especially mental illnesses, medicine could only alleviate them, but it was very difficult to cure them completely. The reason why Yun Songlong was hallucinating and losing control was because his memory was still stuck on the war from several years ago. The purpose of Yun Xing using Yun Meng's ice sleep was to calm him down first. Then she could use the real treatment method. The best treatment for post-war syndromes was hypnosis. Under the effect of Yun Sheng's frozen dream, Yun Xing was able to make full use of Shen Nong's pupil. It was as if Yun Songlong had fallen into a dream. His entire body trembled violently and his voice was filled with regret and pain. Dead, they're all dead. The brothers of the Yun family army, more than 1,000 people, are all dead. Rivers of blood and corpses are everywhere. It's all because of me. But I won't let them off. He was recalling the battle that had greatly damaged the vitality of the entire Zhou state. Amidst his trembling voice, a bloody massacre reappeared in front of everyone. Zhanli closed his eyes in pain. Yun Ba's tall back seemed to bend a little at that moment. Only Yun Sangxue had a calm expression. That was because she had never truly experienced a war. Young General Yun, relax a little. Everything is already in the past. That battle had already ended several years ago. You are very safe now. You are in the general's residence. Those soldiers, their corpses and families have also been settled. Yun Xing sighed in her heart. Shen Nong's pupils shrank and a golden light flashed again. Yun Songlong only felt a heavy blow to his head. It was as if someone had woken him up from his long slumber. His originally turbid eyes gradually regained their clarity. The moment he regained consciousness, Yun Songlong saw several pairs of caring eyes. Father, big brother Zhan, third sister, why are all of you here? Yun Songlong was usually clear-headed, but this time when he woke up, he felt that his head wasn't as heavy as before. He felt much more relaxed. He breathed in and out and felt a wave of comfort in his chest. It was as if he had gotten rid of a heavy burden. Second brother, how do you feel? Zhan Li's face was full of disbelief. From his perspective, Yun Xing didn't do anything just now. She only said a few words to Yun Songlong, and then Yun Songlong gradually regained consciousness. He didn't use a single drop of medicine, and he regained consciousness without a single needle. This was too incredible. Who is this? Yun Songlong only just realized that there was an unfamiliar girl in the room. In her hand she was holding a magic scepter. A magician? Father and third sister actually allowed a magician to enter the general's residence. This was really unprecedented. Yun Songlong carefully looked at Yun Sheng. He realized that Yun Sheng looked very familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. Third brother, this is the newly invited elder of our dojo. Don't be fooled by her young age. Her medical skills are very miraculous. Her views are also very different from others. Just now she said that your illness wasn't hysteria, but some kind of war trauma syndrome. Let her take a look at your hand again. Zhanli urged. Big brother Zhan, thanks for your kindness. My hands have long been crippled. Why do you have to go through so much trouble and waste so much manpower and resources? Yun Songlong understood his father's temper very well. Every time a magician was mentioned, the old man would explode. It was already a miracle that this female magician could stay in the Yun residence. There is no way to treat your right hand, but your left hand is still there. The veins in your left hand are only injured. If there is a chance to open them up, even if you can't practice martial arts, you can at least live a normal life. Zhanli sighed. He knew that for many years Yun Songlong's heart had died. Coupled with his hysteria, he had long given up on his hands. Now that the hysteria that had troubled him for many years had been resolved, the next step would be to treat his hands. Yun Xing's gaze fell on Yun Songlong's hands. With one look she understood why Zhanli said this. It was rumored that the second son of the general's residence, Yun Songlong's hands were injured by the enemy and his body was crippled. However, in reality only Yun Songlong's right hand was chopped off. His left hand was still hanging by his side. However, Yun Xing also noticed that although his left hand was still there, it was hanging limply by his side. His skin was loose and sickly white. Due to not using it for many years, Yun Songlong's left hand was already showing signs of wilting. Compared to his body size, it was one size smaller. According to Yun Xing's experience, if a cure was not found soon, once the veins and nerves atrophied, Yun Songlong's left hand would really be crippled. Uncle, can you let me take a look at your hand? Yun Xing took the initiative to step forward. She had originally wanted to leave, but now she suddenly changed her attitude. Little girl, didn't you say that you wanted to leave? The Marshal St. General's residence does not welcome you. Yun Ba's temper flared as he stomped his feet. Shut up, you're so noisy. When a doctor is treating a patient, the patient's family should not interrupt. A sullen expression appeared on Yun Sheng's delicate face as she rolled her eyes at Yun Ba. Hey, what kind of tone is that? Yun Ba's hair stood on end. His gray hair almost stood on end, making him look like an angry old cat. But Yun Sheng just ignored him. This made Yun Ba feel as if he had punched cotton. He was completely at a loss for words. Zhan Li, on the other hand, couldn't help but laugh. Even Yun Songlong's face had a hint of a smile. When Yun Songshue saw this scene, his expression darkened. Chapter 212. Seeing that Yun Ba was angered by a little girl to the point of not daring to say anything, Yun Songlong smiled and said, "Father, you're already so old, don't vent your anger on a child. Little girl, it's fine if you take a look. The wounds on my body are a little hideous, don't be scared." Yun Songlong's tone was very amiable, causing Yun Songshue to grit her teeth. Yun Songlong had never even spoken to his own nephew, Tang Yu, in such a nice tone. Second brother and Zhan Li really looked down on them. Yun Songshue secretly cursed, and her hatred for Yun Sheng grew. Even though it was their first time meeting, Yun Songlong had a very good impression of Yun Sheng. He couldn't explain why, but he felt that although this little girl's temper was a little fiery, her personality was very frank and cute. He thought of his eldest brother whom he hadn't seen for many years. At that time, his eldest brother had left the residence in a hurry, and his sister-in-law was already pregnant with the Yun family's flesh and blood. If that child was still alive, he would probably be as smart and likable as this little girl in front of him. Yun Sheng first looked at his right hand. Yun Sheng originally thought that Yun Songlong's right hand had been cut off by a sharp weapon, but after she examined it, she found that this wasn't the case. "Uncle, was your right hand directly torn off by some ferocious beast?" An expert could tell the truth when they made a move. Yun Songlong's old injury had been there for almost 10 years, but Yun Sheng was able to make such an accurate judgment just by looking at the wound. This made Yun Ba very surprised. Could it be that this little girl really started learning medical skills when she was in her mother's womb? Zhan Li hurriedly stepped forward and removed Yun Songlong's clothes. Only then did Yun Songlong's hand appear. Yun Sheng took out the Four Seasons colored glass needles. The moment the needles appeared, Yun Ba, who was originally complaining at the side, immediately fell silent. With his eyesight, he could tell that the medical needles in Yun Sheng's hands were magic tools. Yun Sheng examined Yun Songlong's left hand. As she expected, his left hand had severely atrophied. His skin had no elasticity, and the blood vessels inside were on the verge of drying up. Yun Sheng pricked a few major acupoints on his hand with a needle and asked Yun Songlong for his reaction. Yun Songlong had been pricked by countless doctors more than 100 times. He was already used to it and did not feel anything. "Little girl, you don't have to try anymore. Even if my hand is roasted over a fire or frozen in ice, it won't feel anything. It's already crippled." Yun Songlong had already gotten over it. With such a left hand, he would rather it be completely chopped off just like his right hand. Yun Sheng glanced at Yun Songlong. When she was examining Yun Songlong, she found that there were many wounds on his left hand. Those were burns and even frostbites. Seeing the wounds, Yun Ba in combat strength fell silent. When Yun Songlong's hands were crippled, he went through a period of self-torture. Those wounds were all left behind at that time. In order to prevent Yun Songlong from taking things too hard, Yun Ba had no choice but to order his bodyguards to keep a close watch on him. Later on, Yun Songlong only managed to survive the darkest days after combat strength, and Yun Songlong spent a night together. "Uncle, I still need to prick a few more needles. If you feel anything, immediately shout out." Yun Sheng sighed in her heart. The two brothers of the Yun family were indeed plagued with misfortune. If not for her father Yun Songhai, leaving home, Yun Songlong would not be alone and trapped in the enemy camp. Even if it was for her father, she had to think of a way to save Yun Songlong. Yun Songlong wanted to refuse, but when he saw the sincerity on Yun Sheng's small face, he did not know why, but he could not harden his heart. He did not refuse or agree. Yun Sheng started to prick him again. This time, Yun Sheng used the Yin family's ancestral soul healing needle. The soul healing needle was divided into dark needles and bright needles. Yun Sheng used the dark needles to test whether Yun Songlong's left hand could still be saved. Yun Sheng's jade marrow technique had already reached the 3rd level. This also meant that she could use the 3rd level of the soul healing needle. When she pricked him with the needle, the jade marrow technique in her body immediately activated. The dark needles silently pierced through Yun Songlong's skin and followed his blood vessels into his arm. After the first dark needle entered his body, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. Yun Songlong did not react at all. She had failed. Yun Sheng was not discouraged. The second time she used 2 more dark needles. Yun Songlong still did not react. Dark needles consumed a lot of internal energy. After 2 dark needles, Yun Sheng's face was already flushed red. Don't. Yun Songlong tried to persuade her again. Suddenly the 4 needles in Yun Sheng's hand moved together. The 4 seasons-colored glass needles accompanied the power of the dark needles. Like a sudden downpour, like a flood or a ferocious beast, they poured out together. A wave of cold and hot numbness came from Yun Songlong's fingers. He cried out in pain. His left hand trembled as if it had been electrocuted. It was just a moment, but it caused the expressions of the 4 people present to change. The most agitated one was Yun Ba. He completely ignored the fact that he had just reprimanded Yun Sheng a second earlier. Songlong, your hand. My hand, I just regained feeling? Even though it was only for a moment, Yun Songlong clearly felt that his arm had regained feeling. Even though the feeling was very short, his hand had indeed regained feeling. Little girl, can Songlong's hand still be saved? Isn't that right? Say something. Yun Ba had been on the battlefield all his life and had never bowed his head to anyone. But at this moment he was just a pitiful father. He looked at Yun Sheng half pleadingly. He hoped that Yun Sheng could tell him that Yun Songlong's hand could still be saved. Even if it was just a left hand, it was enough to give Songlong, who had been dispirited for many years, a little hope. Yun Sheng's heart was filled with bitterness. How should she answer? Yun Songlong's hand was not completely damaged. Yun Sheng had at least proved one thing through the dark needles just now. Yun Songlong's hand was only restricted by a special method. Earlier she had tested the dark needles twice, but there was no reaction. That was because the power of the dark needles was not enough to break through that method. But if she could cultivate to the 5th level of the Jade Marrow technique, she would be able to release the power of 5 dark needles at once. Then there might be a chance for her to break through that shackle. But right now she did not have any other ideas. Father, don't scare the lass. I'm afraid that she is also helpless. Yun Songlong could tell that Yun Sheng was in a difficult position. He did not blame Yun Sheng. After so many years, she was already the only doctor who could make his hand feel. Even the great grandmaster of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion was unable to make his hand feel anything. Yun, if you have any difficulties, feel free to tell me. As long as Zhan Li is able to do it, I will definitely not frown. As long as you can cure second brother's illness, I can grant you another sect medallion. Zhan Li was also moved. He saw the hope of Yun Songlong's recovery from Yun Sheng's body. Everyone, it's not that I don't want to treat him. It's just that I don't have any way to treat him right now. To be honest, young General Yun's hand is not really crippled. It's just that his battle chi has been restricted by a special method. In order to make it easier for everyone to understand, Yun Sheng simply drew a simple diagram of a human body on the ground. Thank you to Banksia, Laying Egg and Amethyst Snow for their tips. Thank you girls for your crazy votes. Happy Chinese Valentine's Day. Chapter 213. The most important thing for a warrior's body was the circulation of Do Qi. The restriction on Yun Songlong's left arm was very similar to the magic lock Yun Sheng's magic power was sealed in Wushuan Wuji School. However, the technique used by the person who did this to Yun Songlong was much more powerful than ordinary magic locks. Until now, only Yun Sheng was able to use the Yin family's ancestral medical soul divine needle and combine it with the Jade Marrow technique to break the restriction. To cure Uncle Yun's hand, we need at least 50% of our Yin family's unique inner energy. However, I have only reached the 3rd level, so I am temporarily helpless. However, if I break through the 5th level in the future, I have absolute confidence that I can cure Uncle Yun. Using the human body structure diagram, Yun Sheng explained the treatment and her current difficulties concisely. After hearing Yun Sheng's words, the others all came to a realization. Yun Ba did not speak for a long time. On the other hand, Yun Songlong's expression was the calmest of all. Thank you, little godly doctor, for being honest with me. Actually, my hand has been crippled for many years. I'm not in a hurry to recover. Little godly doctor, you don't have to blame yourself. If I am lucky, maybe my hand can recover in the future. Yun Songlong looked kindly at Yun Sheng. For some reason, although it was his first time meeting Yun Sheng, Yun Songlong felt very close to her. This feeling of closeness was even greater than that of his own nephew, Tang Yu. Perhaps feeling Yun Songlong's friendliness, Yun Xing thought for a while. My current skills are not enough, but I have another method. It cannot completely recover Uncle Yun's hand, but it can at least guarantee that your hand will not continue to deteriorate in the next few years. It can also improve the signs of muscle atrophy in your arm. The Jade Marrow technique was a threshold of 3 years. However, in the past 2 years, Yun Xing had broken through from the first level to the 3rd level. Although there was some luck involved, it also made Yun Xing realize that it was much easier to cultivate the Jade Marrow technique in the Boundless Land than in the modern world. The reason for this was probably because the sun essence in the boundless world was much purer than the heavily polluted modern society. The method that Yun Xing mentioned was the blood cloud beast blood that she had experimented with earlier. The blood cloud beast's blood was a very good medicine to strengthen the body. Combined with Yun Xing's special acupuncture technique, Yun Songlong's left hand could absorb part of the beast's blood, which could also improve the deterioration of his left hand. I will return to the medicine hall now and prepare the appropriate beast blood and medicinal herbs. In the future, I will visit your residence every 5 days to perform acupuncture on you. Yun Xing ignored the dumbfounded Yun Ba and left the general's residence. Haha, the little girl's temper is quite bad, but her medical skills and medical ethics are very good. Since she said that there's a cure for second brother's hand, then there must be a cure. Zhang sighed with emotion, his face full of smiles. She has no respect for her elders and speaks so rudely in front of her elders. One look and I can tell that she wasn't raised in a good family. Yun Ba recalled Yun Xing's attitude towards him just now and was filled with anger. Children nowadays were really too unlikable. Father, that child's temper is very similar to yours. Yun Songlong smiled. Nonsense, who's similar to her? Zhang, we haven't met for a long time. I have a few jars of good wine in the wine cellar. Help this old man get them. Yun Ba sent Zhang to the wine cellar in the residence to get the wine. Yun Ba loved drinking the most in his life. Regardless of whether he was happy or unhappy, he liked to drink a few cups. Every time Zhang came back he would get drunk. After Zhang left, Yun Ba snorted and said with some anger, Songlong, until now you still refuse to tell father who injured your hands back then? It turned out that Yun Ba's drinking wine was fake. The real reason was that he deliberately called Zhang. All these years, Yun Ba had always thought that Yun Songlong's hands were injured when he was ambushed by the enemy and besieged. However, when that stubborn little girl said it just now, he figured out that something was wrong. His right hand was torn apart by a ferocious beast and his left hand was restrained by a special method. Yun Songlong was Yun Ba's son. It could be said that all his martial arts skills were inherited from Yun Ba. Of the 2 sons of the Yun family, Yun Songhai was talented in magic and Yun Songlong was also very talented in martial arts. That year, when Yun Songlong was attacked by the enemy, he was already a martial arts grandmaster and his current combat strength was not much different. If he had used all his strength, Yun Songlong would have at least been able to escape unscathed even if the enemy had 10,000 soldiers. However, he was defeated. Not only was he defeated, but his hands were also crippled and he ended up in his current state. However, if the enemy really wanted to kill Yun Songlong, why would they only cripple his hands? Thinking about it, the enemy either had a deep hatred for the Yun family and wanted the Yun family to live a life worse than death, or they had some misgivings and did not dare to kill Yun Songlong. The martial saint old general himself could not figure out the reason for this, but Yun Songlong was also unwilling to say more. After going back and forth, the truth of the matter had not been exposed. Yun Songlong's pain had only lasted for so many years. Father, you don't need to ask about what happened that year. It was because I was not as skilled as the enemy that I was injured and embarrassed the martial saint old general's residence. Yun Songlong's expression was pained. His words showed that he was unwilling to talk about the past. The wine is here. Second brother, you need to consume beast blood and cannot drink wine. This jar of good wine is for the old general and me. Zhang, who did not know what was going on, carried a jar of wine over. There was hope for Yun Songlong's hands. Zhang was happy for him from the bottom of his heart. Today he would not leave until he was drunk. Brother Qi, I still have something to ask you. That little girl just now, what is her name? Also, her medical skills are very special. I don't think I have seen such acupuncture in Zhou State. Yun Songlong felt that he had seen Yun Xing somewhere before. Her name is Yan Yun. She is an exchange student that I poached from the Imperial Magic Academy. As for where she learned from, I only heard that she lives in a medical clinic in the city. That was all that Zhang Li knew. As they spoke, Yun Xing had already retrieved the beast blood. She instructed Yun Songlong's attendant to bring it back to his room and began to tell Yun Songlong the taboo of using the beast blood. After soaking his hands in the beast blood, Yun Songlong's skin was much rosier than usual. Yun Xing also inserted a few needles into his hands. In the courtyard, Yun Ba and Zhan Li drank wine and talked loudly about the current situation in Zhou State. Yun Ba had a fiery temper and would occasionally scold the civil officials in the imperial court. Zhan Li could only smile and drink at the side. Unknowingly, the sun had set. When Yun Xing walked past the courtyard, she heard Yun Songhai mutter, "Yun Songhai, you unfilial son." She turned around and saw the old general's tall body leaning over the stone table in the courtyard. He was already drunk and looked exceptionally bleak. She didn't know why, but she felt a sense of sadness in her heart, and her hatred for the general's residence was no longer as strong. Chapter 214. Even though Yun Songlong's hand couldn't be healed immediately, Yun Songlong's PTSD gradually recovered under Yun Sheng's treatment. His relapses became less frequent, from once every 10 days to once every month. In the end, he was completely healed. Yun Songlong's hand also gradually regained feeling under the effects of numerous hidden needles. Even though he couldn't directly clench his fist, he could already feel the warmth and pain in his hand. This made Yun Ba, who originally had some opinions about Yun Xing, speechless. The entire Yun residence was overjoyed by this news, except for Yun Songxue, who wasn't very happy. Yun Ba had no choice but to tacitly accept PTSD, a condition that had never appeared in the Boundless Continent. However, Yun Sheng was still unwilling to go to the general's residence frequently, in case that old man would blow his beard and glare at her every time she saw him. Zhan Li had a lot of trust in Yun Sheng and trusted her even more. Unknowingly, more than half a month had passed. On this day, Yun Sheng went to the general's residence to help Yun Songlong with his daily acupuncture treatment. She also checked on him to see if his PTSD had recovered. After spending some time with Yun Sheng's opinion of the Marshal Saint General's residence changed slightly. Originally, Yun Sheng thought that Yun Songlong was as unreasonable as Yun Songxue and could get along with him. Only then did she realize that Yun Songlong was a very easygoing and knowledgeable person. Even though he was bathed in blood on the battlefield, there wasn't a trace of hostility around him. When his hands were still healthy, he still liked to play the flute and drum and was a rare talent among Zhou State's generals who excelled in both the pen and the sword. He also told Yun Sheng a lot about Zhou State's local customs and practices, which broadened Yun Sheng's horizons. Yun Songlong and Yun Sheng also got along very well. He originally thought that Yun Sheng was just a precocious doctor and was at most a little smarter than ordinary people. However, the more he interacted with her, the more Yun Songlong felt that her speech and understanding were extraordinary. This lad is not a fish in a pond. Big brother Zhan has found a treasure this time. Yun Songlong secretly praised. Uncle Yun, your PTSD has been cured. Your left hand has also improved recently. Your atrophied muscles have also recovered quite a bit. In the future, you only need to pay attention to your diet and rest, and your body will gradually recover. Although you can't directly cultivate Do Qi, you can do some simple martial arts training. Yun Sheng put away the Four Seasons colored glass needles and discussed the illness with Yun Songlong. Because the veins in his left hand were blocked, Yun Songlong could not directly circulate his Do Qi. However, his body's foundation was very good. If he recovered properly, even if he could not return to his original condition, his body would be healthy and pain-free. Yun Songlong retracted his thoughts. He only thought that Yun Sheng was comforting him. With his half-crippled body, how could he return to his original peak condition? He thought for a while, then suddenly said, "Yen Lass, Uncle Yun wants to ask you for a favor." During this period of time, Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong had already become familiar with each other. Yun Songlong was a forthright person, and he did not call Yun Sheng Divine Dr. Yen. Instead, he directly called her Yen Lass. Yun Sheng was quite used to this intimate form of address. "Uncle, just say what you want. However, let me say this first, it's best that this matter has nothing to do with that stubborn father of yours." Yun Sheng curled her lips. Forgiving Yun Songlong was one thing, forgiving Yun Ba was another. Even now, every time Yun Ba saw Yun Sheng, he would always make a strange snorting sound. In return, Yun Sheng would always roll her eyes at him. When he heard Yun Sheng's angry tone, Yun Songlong had the urge to laugh. In reality, Yun Songlong did not reject the childish bickering between his father and Yun Sheng. Instead, he liked it. This gave Yun Songlong the illusion that his grandchildren were happy together. Compared to his incompetent nephew Tang Yu, who only knew how to cause trouble for the general's estate, Yun Songlong would rather Yun Xing be his niece. I want you to help me take a look at those brothers of the Yun family army. Yun Songlong and Yun Sheng left the general's estate together. Zhou state revered martial arts, and the general's estate of the martial saint general was in great favor for a time. The previous emperor of Zhou state allowed the Yun family army to form their own personal army. The Yun family army that Yun Songlong mentioned was the Yun family's private army. The army only belonged to the Yun family, and they received their salaries directly from the Yun family's treasury. They were mainly responsible for patrolling and inspecting the Yun family's territory. After Yun Songlong was injured and returned to the estate, he had not gone to the Yun family army for many years. The matters of the army were all handed over to his third sister, Yun Songshuet, to manage. Bringing Yun Sheng to the Yun family army was because after Yun Songlong was defeated many years ago, a group of soldiers who were lucky enough to survive with him were all placed in the Yun family army. These brothers had accompanied Yun Songlong through fire and water, but because of their family background, they were unable to receive the same treatment as Yun Songlong. It was said that these brothers had not been living well these past few years. Yun Songlong had always wanted to visit his old comrades, but he was suffering from a strange illness and could not go out. Now that his body had recovered, he could not wait to see his old comrades. In the past he did not know about the war trauma syndrome. After being reminded by Yun Sheng, he realized that other than him, there were probably many other brothers in the Yun family army who had suffered from this strange illness. The uncle and niece walked together on the streets of Yujing. Facing the crowds, carriages and horses coming and going, as well as the streets of Yujing that were no longer the same as they were many years ago, Yun Songlong felt a little afraid for a moment. He was like a lost child, tossing and turning, not knowing how to face the crowd. After Yun Songlong suffered from the hysteria, in order to prevent him from hurting others, Yun Ba had always forbidden him from going out. This was the first time in many years that he had left the general's estate alone. Just as Yun Songlong was hesitating, a warm feeling came from his left hand. Looking down, he saw Yun Sheng's soft little hand holding Yun Songlong's large hand. Although the feeling was very weak, Yun Songlong could see the consolation in Yun Sheng's encouraging eyes. He smiled and strode into the crowd. After walking a few steps, Yun Songlong felt a wave of hunger. Only then did he remember that he had been so focused on chatting with Yun Sheng in the morning that he had forgotten to eat. It was Uncle Yun who neglected it. It should be time for lunch. You are at the age where you are growing. The big pots of rice in the Yun family army camp are not very nutritious, Yun Songlong said with an embarrassed smile. He chose a famous and old restaurant in the city and wanted to bring Yun Sheng to eat their fill. When the uncle and niece of the Yun family entered, they did not notice that there were 3 pairs of eyes looking at them from above the restaurant. That's strange. Am I seeing things? Isn't that the little girl from the martial arts center? Why is she walking with a middle-aged man? Can't be. In a private room in the restaurant sat Yi Baiming, Qing Bai and Bu Jiuxiao. The 3 of them frequented this restaurant on a daily basis. They did not expect to meet Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong here. Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong walked in hand. This could easily cause misunderstandings. Yi Baiming's gaze darkened slightly as he looked at the smiling Yun Sheng. For some reason he felt that the smile on Yun Sheng's face was very dazzling. Chapter 215. Bu Jiuxiao saw that Yi Baiming's expression wasn't good, so he looked over as well. With one look he was so shocked that he immediately stood up. Yun Songlong. The martial saint general's residence is Yun Songlong? His hysteria has been cured? Bu Jiuxiao saw clearly that the thin man sitting opposite Yun Sheng was Yun Songlong. He was different from Yi Baiming and Qing Bai. Qing Bai's ancestors were civil officials, while Yi Baiming was blind in his early years. The 2 of them had never seen the once prominent second young master of the Yun family, Yun Songlong, in Zhou state. The martial saint general's residence had many outstanding people in its early years. Yun Songhai was the youngest sky magician in Zhou state, and his younger brother, Yun Songlong, was also the youngest general in Zhou state. The martial saint general was old, and the Marquis of Jiyuan guarded the Jade capital. Yun Songlong rose to prominence at that time. He went to war when he was 12, and when he was 25 his battle skills were invincible. At that time, Bu Jiuxiao was only a 5 or 6-year-old child, but in his childhood memories the name Yun Songlong was synonymous with hero. Yun Songlong was disabled and left Zhou state's military camp, which made the young Bu Jiuxiao sad for a long time. He originally thought that he wouldn't have the chance to see his childhood idol appear again in this lifetime, but a few hundred meters away, the person chatting happily was indeed Yun Songlong. You said that middle-aged man is Yun Songlong? Then isn't he Master's sworn brother? No wonder Master's mood was so good recently. So he introduced the little divine doctor to Yun Songlong. When Cheng Bai heard that it was Yun Songlong, he also looked over anxiously. Yun Songlong had been away from the eyes of the people for too long, so long that most of the people in Jade Capital already didn't recognize the Zhou State's general who once commanded the battlefield. So it's just to see a doctor. Yi Baiming unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. The restaurant Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong were in was a famous restaurant in Jade Capital. There were all kinds of people in it, and there were even some singers who were here to earn a living. When the two of them were halfway through their meal, a delicate and pretty singer of about 13 or 14 years old walked over shyly. She held a pipa in her hands and asked softly, "Two guests, the Oriole will sing a little song to liven things up. If the song is to your liking, can you give the Oriole a few copper coins as a reward?" This female singer looked very young and inexperienced, and her voice was trembling a little. Her clothes were very ordinary, but her words and actions did not seem like an ordinary prostitute. Most of these women had no choice but to go out to perform for the sake of their family's livelihood because their family had declined. In a place like a restaurant there were all kinds of people. A singing girl who looked like a little lamb must have a hard time here. Yun Songlong nodded and took out 5 silver coins and gave them to Oriole. When Oriole saw this, she hurriedly knelt down to thank him and was pulled up by Yun Sheng. She gently plucked the strings, and a burst of pipa music that sounded like the tinkling of spring water slowly played in the restaurant. The singing girl Oriole's pipa skills were not very good, but her singing voice was very good. It was sweet and clear and it was a naturally good voice. Yun Sheng had never heard of this kind of live performance in her previous life. Hearing it today it had a different flavor. On Yun Songlong's face, there was also a look of appreciation. When the song reached its climax, a few gold coins fell from the sky and landed at Oriole's feet. Oriole was startled and her singing stopped. The pipa in her hand also fell to the ground in fright. A rough voice immediately sounded, "Young lady's voice is not bad. Hearing it makes the young master's hearts tremble. Come over here and sing a little song. The young masters have plenty of gold coins." After saying that, a burst of unbridled whistling could be heard. Yun Sheng raised her head to look. The window in the direction of the restaurant was wide open, and the sound was coming from the private room. Just as the teasing stopped, a few fierce-looking guards came down from upstairs and pulled Oriole, who was in a terrible state, to the private room upstairs. Oriole's cries attracted the attention of everyone in the restaurant, but no one stepped forward to help. The customers were all expressionless, as if they were already used to this kind of scene. An orphan girl who entered the mouths of those foppish men was bound to meet with misfortune. Those who dared to commit murder in such a public place like the restaurant must have a strong family background. Oriole was just a singing girl who had no one to rely on. It was really not worth offending those foppish men in the Jade Capital for her. Even the restaurant owner only shook his head and sighed, but did not step forward to help. This is too much. Yun Sheng pulled out her magic scepter and was about to take action. But just as she was about to take action, she suddenly noticed that Yun Songlong was not right. Yun Songlong's left hand was slightly trembling because of anger. His hand could move. Seeing this, Yun Sheng put down her magic scepter. "None of you touch me. I am the daughter of the Yun family's military officer, Huang Qianyong." The Oriole was dragged all the way, and seeing that she was about to be pulled into a private room, her pale face flushed red with anger. Her shoulders, which were originally trembling with fear, suddenly straightened. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she pushed the guards away and stumbled down the stairs. She was originally the daughter of a military family and lived a carefree life. If not for her father's illness, she would never appear in public in such a place. The Yun family's army. Yun Songlong's left hand trembled even more violently. Children of military families were military families. Zhou State's laws had a certain degree of protection for the wives, daughters and children of active military personnel. If anyone harmed a military family, the crime would be doubled. Hearing Oriole's words, the guards also had some misgivings. "What are you spacing out for? Grab her." Why would a military family member of the Yun family sing in a restaurant? In the private room, not only were the debauches not frightened, they became even more aggressive. If it was 10 years ago, the Yun family army would be considered a famous army in Zhou State. But now it was different. The Yun family army had long since declined. When the guards heard this, they became even more unscrupulous. Like eagles pouncing on chicks, they grabbed Oriole's hair and dragged her upstairs. Tears streamed down Oriole's face. She already had the intention to die in her heart. She knew that her chastity had been insulted today, so she might as well die. She clenched her teeth and was about to bite her tongue to commit suicide. Let her go. Yun Songlong was angry and he suddenly stood up. Although Yun Songlong was disabled, the murderous aura he had honed on the battlefield in his early years was like an unsheathed sword. With an angry roar, the entire restaurant shook as if it had been struck by lightning. The few guards who were dragging the aureole only felt the do chi in their bodies stop. It was as though they had been punched in the chest by someone. They abruptly withdrew their hands. Within the private room, the wave of laughter also instantly quieted down. Where did these blind people come from? How dare they interfere with this young master's business? A burst of anger could be heard from the private room as a group of young martial practitioners wearing luxurious clothes walked down. When Yun Xing saw this, her throat itched and she couldn't help but cough. This time, it really was a case of the flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. They didn't recognize their own family. Among the luxuriously dressed martial practitioners, one of them looked very familiar. Wasn't that Yun Songlong's good nephew Tang Yu? Chapter 216. Just as Yun Xing was lighting a candle for Tang Yu in her heart, Tang Yu still didn't realize that he had caused a huge disaster. After not seeing him for more than a year, not only did Tang Yu not improve, he had become even more mischievous. He was originally studying at Wuxia Limitless School. At that time, he had borrowed Yun Songlong's relationship and combat strength had given him face to let him go. However, who knew that this brat would be beaten down by triple training in the morning, afternoon and night after entering the martial arts school for a few months. His mother, Yun Sangxue, felt sorry for her son and begged combat strength to find an easier training for her son. Combat strength hated this kind of backdoor behavior the most and simply persuaded Tang Yu to leave. Yun Sangxue had no choice but to send Tang Yu to the Marquis of Jiyuan's residence to learn martial arts with a few of his sons. After Tang Yu arrived, not only did he not learn his lesson, he even skipped classes and fooled around with the relatives of the Marquis of Jiyuan. After failing to loiter around the brothels of the Jade capital, he even forcefully snatched women in restaurants. Today he was drunk in the restaurant when he suddenly heard sweet singing coming from downstairs. The hedonistic sons at the side were coaxing together and had the idea of grabbing the singer upstairs. Who knew that the aureole was someone who refused to submit to power. She reported her identity and when he found out that she was a soldier's wife, Tang Yu was shocked. However, he thought about it again. The Yun family army was a group of servants raised by his Yun residents. All these years, second uncle didn't leave the house and the Yun family army's salary was all arranged by his mother, Yun Sangxue. Regardless of whether the aureole was really a soldier's wife or not, even if she was, Tang Yu wasn't worried that she would really cause any trouble. A low-class soldier's wife who relied on the Yun family's salary to survive was at best worse than a beast. Since young Master Tang had taken a fancy to her, the aureole should feel honored. When Tang Yu came out, he didn't pay attention to Yun Songlong. Today Yun Songlong had changed his clothes and shaved his beard when he went out. He was completely different from the second uncle that Tang Yu remembered seeing in the Yun residence, so Tang Yu naturally couldn't recognize him. Tang Yu's perverted heart never changed. When he took a closer look, he saw the aureole crawling on the ground with her face covered in rain. Her hair was messy, which made her palm-sized face even more alluring. Tang Yu only felt an unbearable itch in his heart. With a mischievous smile, he reached out to touch the aureole's face. "What are you crying for, little beauty? Didn't you just say that you're a soldier's wife? That's great. Do you know who I am? I'm the young master of the Yun residence, Tang Yu. Your father is a subordinate of my grandfather and second uncle. You just happen to be here to serve this young master." Tang Yu's words made the aureole even more embarrassed and angry. She did not expect that the one who caused her to end up in such a miserable state was the young master of the Martial Saint General's residence. The guests in the restaurant were also shaking their heads. The Martial Saint General's manner was unfortunate. In the third generation not only did they not have a successor, their only grandson, Tang Yu, was actually such a bastard. The reputation of the Martial Saint General's residence was completely lost by him. Tang Yu. What a good Tang Yu. What a good son Yun Sangxue raised. Yun Songlong was also unbearably angry. If it wasn't for the fact that he could not move his hands with his previous temper, regardless of whether Tang Yu was his nephew or not, Tang Yu would definitely have died with a single slap. How dare you? Who are you to insult my mother? Tang Yu's eyes were wide open as he glanced at Yun Songlong. Only with this glance did he recognize the person. Tang Yu's calf cramped and he was so frightened that he almost fell to the ground. He stammered, "Second uncle. Second uncle." This earth-shattering sentence caused Huang Ke-er to stop crying. The customers who were watching the show were all astonished. Tang Yu's second uncle was the Marshal Saint General's residence's Yun Songlong? Young General Yun, are you the young General Yun that father often talks about? The Oriole looked as if she had seen her savior and knelt in front of Yun Songlong. Good child, quickly get up. Your father is my battalion commander and I didn't recognize you just now. However, as a soldier's family member and the Yun family army has always enjoyed the Yun residence's salary, how did you fall to the point where you have to go out to sing? Hearing Yun Songlong ask about the Yun family army, Tang Yu, who was frightened into a ball, couldn't help but reveal a trace of panic. Yun Xing noticed this. It seemed that during the period when Yun Songlong was seriously ill, something must have happened to the Yun family army. General Yun, you don't know, but the Yun family army hasn't given out any salary for many years. After my father returned from the battlefield in the first few years, he could still get some salary from the Yun family army. However, starting from 3 years ago, the Yun residence stopped everyone's salary. There were also a few brave soldiers who went to the Yun residence to ask for their salary, but they were all chased out by the Yun residence's guards. Seeing Yun Songlong, the Oriole had the guts to spit out all the bitter water that had happened to the Yun family army all these years. There were many other Yun family army soldiers who had encountered the same situation as her. Because these people were the Yun residence's private army, after leaving the national army, they were unwilling to take up other jobs. Huang Ke's father was very unfortunate. He was injured on the battlefield and had been living in poverty all these years, muddling along. Huang Ke had also heard that singing in the city's restaurants could earn money, so she came here to sing. Who knew that on the first day she came here, she would be teased by Tang Yu and the others. When Tang Yu saw this, she secretly wanted to slip away. However, who knew that Yun Sheng, who had been silent all this time, would mock her? "Young Master Tang, where are you going? Are you going home to complain to your mother?" Tang Yu was so angry that she almost fainted. However, Yun Songlong's thick eyebrows raised. "Tang Yu, come here." Yun Songlong wasn't completely unaware that Yun Songxue was cultivating her own power in the Yun residence. However, due to his terrible illness, the entire Yun residence was taken care of by his sister alone. He felt guilty and didn't pursue the matter. However, today's matter had touched his bottom line. There were more than 1,000 people in the Yun family army and all of them were good brothers who had followed him through life and death. Yun Songxue could touch anyone but the Yun family army. Tang Yu was still very fearful of this second uncle of his. His group of playmates had already dispersed in a hubbub. Although there were guards present in the Yun residence, who would dare to make a move in front of Yun Songlong? Seeing that there was no way to escape, Tang Yu could only timidly walk over. "Kneel down and apologize to Miss Huang Ke," Yun Songlong said bitterly. He had occasionally gone out today and encountered the matter of the Oriole. Who knew how many innocent commoners and girls had been defiled by Tang Yu? His father had no time to care about the matters in the Yun residence all these years, which was why Tang Yu had developed such a character. When Huang Ke heard this, she jumped in fright and hurriedly shook her head. "General Yun, Huang Ke cannot accept this. I only beg young Master Tang not to bully other girls in the future." "That's right, second uncle. Her father is only one of your subordinates. What right does he have to make me kneel down and apologize?" Not only did Tang Yu not have any intention of repentance, he even continued to act like a young master. Seeing this, Yun Songlong's face darkened. "Tang Yu, come here." Tang Yu walked over without understanding. Just as he approached, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his knees, as if someone had interrupted him. With a plop, he knelt on the ground. It was Yun Songlong who had abruptly kicked him. Although he had lost his do chi, his battle skills were still there. This kick and retraction seemed to carry the power of wind and thunder. With one kick, Tang Yu's knees were actually forcefully dislocated, the sound of bones cracking clearly audible. User points, Destiny, Azure, Su and Chuya's rewards have been up for more than a month. Fortunately, there are still people looking. As long as there are people looking, I will persevere. Chapter 217. The sound of bones breaking entered the ears of everyone present. Even Yun Xing felt her eyelids twitch. TSK. As expected of the former #1 general of Zhou State, a ruthless character on the battlefield. His actions were both ruthless and fast. Yun Xing secretly exclaimed, "Well done." The knees were one of the most important vital parts of the human body. Having the knees broken while they were still alive was like being bitten by thousands of ants. The pain was unimaginable. Tang Yu had completely sobered up by now. Only now did he know that second uncle was truly angry today. Second uncle, have mercy. Tang Yu was pampered in the Yun residence. His entire body was in pain as he hugged his knees and rolled on the ground. Second master, please have mercy. The guards were also anxious and hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. Scram. Whoever dares to stop me from teaching this little bastard a lesson today will be dealt with according to military law. Yun Songlong's aura was completely exposed. Between his brows, there was a faint thunderous aura of the former young general. Yun Xing watched from the side and nodded repeatedly. With Tang Yu's temperament, if he wasn't properly disciplined, the Yun residence would definitely be turned into a mess by him in the future. Yun Songlong taught him a good lesson. In the private room, Yi Baiming, Qing Bai, and Bu Jiuxiao also nodded. The three of them had the same expression. With Yun Songlong's appearance today, it seemed that the Yun family was going to change. Tang Yu wailed on the ground, but Yun Songlong was indifferent. Second uncle, on account of the fact that I'm the only grandchild in the residence of Yun, please let me go. I'm the only descendant left of my mother's bloodline, Tang Yu pleaded recklessly. He thought that if the Yun residence had no successor, Yun Songlong wouldn't really do anything to him. Tang Yu, if you don't apologize today, don't mention your mother, even if your grandfather came personally, I would still beat him up. If it was in the military camp, a piece of trash like you wouldn't be enough even if you died 10 times. Yun Songlong couldn't help but sigh. The Yun residence was unfortunate to have a descendant like Tang Yu. If Big Brother was still alive, his children would definitely be hundreds or thousands of times stronger than this little rascal. Little Yin, I'll have to trouble you to help me tie up this brat and transport him to the Yun family army's encampment. I'll bring him to apologize to my old comrades. Yun Songlong wanted to go to the encampment today to see clearly what exactly Yun Songxue had done to the Yun family army all these years behind his back. Yun Xing nodded. She waved her magic scepter and several light blue water ropes spontaneously formed. They were like nimble vines binding Tang Yu tightly. Yun Xing was annoyed by Tang Yu's incessant yelling, so she simply used a ball of water vapor to block his mouth. She then used a levitation spell to lift Tang Yu's rather large body up. Wait! A group of guards rushed in from the entrance of the restaurant. They were all guards from the residence of Yun. Yun Songxue was like a moon surrounded by a myriad of stars as he walked out in fury. It turned out that when the residents of Yun's guards saw that Tang Yu had been captured, they were afraid that Yun Songlong would really hurt Tang Yu in a fit of rage. Thus, they secretly sent someone back to the general's estate to report. When Yun Songxue heard that her beloved son was beaten by her brother in public because of a lowly singer, the rage in her heart soared. She immediately ordered a dozen guards to rush over. You are a mother's darling, what happened to you? Yun Songxue took a closer look. Tang Yu's legs were hanging weakly on the ground, and his face was deathly pale from the pain. Her heart ached, and she was extremely angry at her second brother for being so heavy-handed. She cried as she pounced forward and hugged Tang Yu. However, Tang Yu's mouth was covered with a ball of water vapor and he couldn't speak. Yun Songxue was even more furious. Who is it? How dare you treat my son like this? It's me. Yun Xing also didn't expect that Yun Songxue would disregard the Yun residence's face and directly bring a group of guards here. No wonder Tang Yu had developed such a personality. It was directly related to Yun Songxue, his mother. It's you again, you little slut. See how I'll deal with you later. Yun Songxue fiercely glared at Yun Xing, then glanced at the black-faced Yun Songlong. Second brother, you're your nephew. He did something wrong, so you only need to bring him back to the residence. Songxue will discipline him. However, if you directly break his knees, it will affect his future martial arts training. What will you do then? Yun Songxue knew that her second brother had a fiery temper. She didn't want today's matter to reach her father, Yun Ba. Third sister, you don't need to say any more. I'll wait for Tang Yu to return to the Yun family's encampment. There will be military law as to how he should be punished. Yun Songlong was unmoved. Second brother, don't force me. Yun Songxue was anxious to protect her son. Seeing that Yun Songlong was still unmoved, she also pulled a long face and slowly stood up. With just a glance, the dozens of guards beside her immediately moved and surrounded Yun Songlong and Yun Xing. All these years, Yun Songxue had been in charge of the Yun family and she had nurtured a group of loyal soldiers. Although Yun Songlong was the male heir of the Yun family, the guards all knew that his hands were crippled and his body was crippled. He didn't have the slightest bit of life left in his body. A person like this could never inherit the Yun family's business. On the other hand, third Miss Yun Sangxue had little young Master Tang Yu and would definitely inherit the Yun family in the future. Since that was the case, they naturally had to listen to Yun Sangxue's orders. Yun Sangxue had also been forced into a corner. She knew that her father and second brother were stubborn. She knew very well that in a place like the Yun family's encampment, Tang Yu had done so many shameful things over the years. If they really wanted to punish him according to military law, Tang Yu's little life would be lost. Yun Songlong's face also darkened slightly. He could see that Yun Sangxue was going to shed all pretense of cordiality today. Yun Sangxue was a fierce woman from a family of generals. Although her dou qi couldn't be compared to her father Yun Ba and second brother Yun Songlong, she had also learned martial arts from a young age. Her martial skills had been taught by Yun Ba, and she was now a martial honorable. If Yun Songlong still had his dou qi, he naturally wouldn't need to fear Yun Sangxue and the guards. However, his hands were crippled and his dou qi was suppressed. If they really fought, he would definitely not be a match for them. Moreover, the restaurant was chaotic and he still had Yun Sheng and Oriole, two weak women, by his side. Yun Sheng was a sorcerer and Yun Songlong didn't know what her cultivation was like. However, if they really fought, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. Yun Songlong's misgivings were exactly what Yun Sangxue had noticed the moment they entered the restaurant. That damn sorceress. If it weren't for her, why would Yun Songlong have a conflict with her? And that seductive singer, what military wife? Wasn't she just a little fox? Yun Songlong glared at Yun Sheng with hatred. Men, tie up those two little hooves first. At her command, the Yun residence's guards pounced on Yun Sheng and Oriole like hungry wolves. Yun Sheng frowned and secretly sighed. Yun Sangxue, there's a path to heaven but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell but you insist on barging in. Since you've beaten up the little one, you can beat up the big one as well. Chapter 218. The Yun siblings faced each other. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the owner of the restaurant hurriedly closed the door and the customers dispersed. Only the private rooms upstairs remained silent. The owner couldn't care less and hid under the counter with a few waiters. Take. Yun Sangxue shouted angrily, but only finished half of her sentence. She hadn't even finished releasing her fighting aura when she felt the ground beneath her feet tremble. Yun Sangxue's instinct as a warrior told her that there was something abnormal underground. She looked at the female mage again and saw that she had already raised her magic scepter. She actually activated magic so quickly? With a bang, the floor tiles of the restaurant were overturned and several streaks of water vapor shot out from the ground. The water vapor quickly condensed together and twisted, finally forming a blue anaconda. Yun Songlong was shocked. He saw Yun Xing raise her magic scepter and move her red lips. Dense water element magic was emitted from the anaconda's body. Under its empty gaze, the guards of the Marshal St. General's residence were nothing. It curled up in the air and flicked its light blue tongue. The anaconda was as thick as a wooden barrel and had a mouth like a basin. It roared and swept its tail, firmly entangling the guards of the Marshal St. General's residence. Mid-level magic, water-binding transformation anaconda. The strength of the anaconda was at least 250 kilograms. The enormous water element magic instantly crushed the sternum of the guards. They were in so much pain that they wished they were dead and kept begging for mercy. Damn it, this female magician's strength is actually so strong. To be able to form a mimicry of mid-level water magic like the anaconda in the blink of an eye, her strength was at least that of an archmage. At this moment, Yun Sangxue already knew that things weren't going well. She leaped high and aimed at the Oriole not far away. As long as she caught the Oriole, she wouldn't be afraid that she wouldn't yield. Yun Sangxue had underestimated Yun Sheng. How could she not know Yun Sangxue's intention? She wanted to use the weakness of the Oriole to threaten her. That water python with its head held high suddenly moved. Its enormous body was like a water rainbow as it swiftly attacked the place where Yun Sangxue had landed. Under the circumstances, Yun Sangxue also revealed her solid foundation as a martial artist. She took a few steps in midair and actually changed her landing trajectory in midair. She abruptly changed her trajectory and landed in the empty space where the anaconda was attacking. The anaconda was extremely ferocious. With a loud bang, a large hole was drilled into the floor of the restaurant. The Oriole, who was a few meters away from the anaconda, screamed. If it had been half a second later, the falling rocks would have definitely made the Oriole bleed. In a moment of desperation, Yun Sheng's gaze fell between the water python and Yun Sangshua. Yun Sangshua turned back halfway. Although she was lucky enough to avoid the anaconda, she did not gain much of an advantage. She staggered and landed on the ground. The guards at the side wanted to go up and help her, but she stopped them with a fierce voice. Yun Sheng had to do two things in an instant. First, she had to urge the anaconda to attack Yun Sangshua. Second, she had to go and save Huang Ke. However, she was only one person. If she did two things at the same time, she would definitely reveal a gap. In this situation, if it were anyone else, they would definitely be flustered. However, at this moment, Yun Sheng revealed the strong will and sharp reflexes that she had honed on the operating table as a doctor in her previous life. She did not retreat, nor did she give way. The bone-bewitching scepter in her hand drew a dazzling arc in the air as she chanted softly. On her magic scepter, the two magic soul stones and the imprint of the wind fairy lit up at the same time. The anaconda that had burrowed into the ground let out a loud splash. A ripple appeared on its body that was as thick as a wooden bucket. That ripple split from its head and extended all the way to its tail. That scene looked very terrifying. Suddenly the anaconda split into two. One anaconda attacked Yun Sangshua, while the other anaconda coiled around Huang Ke. The falling rocks were blocked by the thick water vapor from the anaconda, and did not hurt Huang Quebec Yun Sangshua, and the rest were also caught off guard by the attack. In the private room, Yi Baiming's silver eyes suddenly shrank. He praised in his heart, what a cool spell. A mere mimicry anaconda was not surprising. Yi Baiming could also see that the anaconda was not mature yet. It was obvious that the female magic caster had not comprehended a mid-level spell for long. However, it was precisely this kind of immature and even somewhat inexperienced magic that was able to make the astonishing transformation of splitting the snake into two under the critical situation. This was something that no one had expected. That female magic caster's control over her spell was very outstanding. The two anacondas were exactly the same size, and the magical waves were also almost the same. This also showed that the person who cast the spell had a very strict control over the magical elements. Yi Baiming finally understood the meaning of Qing Bai's words earlier. This lass from the Royal Magic Academy indeed made people gain something every time they saw her. Sangshua, stop. When are you going to stop? In a rage, Yun Sanglong's body moved like a phantom, passing by the anaconda and the guards. He raised his left hand and slapped Yun Sangshua furiously. Yun Sangshua was stunned. The guards present were also dumbfounded. General Yun's hand. Even Yun Sanglong himself was stunned by this slap. He looked at his hand in disbelief. At this moment, the sound of horse hooves could be heard from outside the restaurant. The old general of the Martial Saint realm had arrived. There were many people in the restaurant, and the news of Yun Sanglong's appearance in the restaurant spread out in less than 15 minutes. Almost at the same time, a few spies secretly brought the news of Yun Sanglong to a few places in the Jade capital. In the Medicine Imperial Pavilion, Yao Rong also received the news. What? You said that you saw Yun Sanghai in the Jade House and his hysteria was cured? Yun Sanglong's illness was a sore point for the Medicine Imperial Pavilion. His hysteria was not cured for many years, and the outside world said that the Medicine Imperial Pavilion was unable to cure him. But now Yun Sanglong had recovered and no one knew who had cured his illness. Send someone to inquire about it. You must find out exactly who has been entering and exiting the Martial Saint General's mansion during this period of time. Yao Rong was not a narrow-minded person. She only wanted to find the genius doctor who had cured Yun Sanglong. If that person could join the Medicine Imperial Pavilion, that would be the best. But if that divine doctor was not willing to join, then she could personally go and exchange pointers with the divine doctor. Just as Yao Rong sent someone to find out about the Martial Saint General's manor, a spy in the Marquis of Jiyuan's manor reported Yun Sanglong's appearance in the restaurant in the Jade capital to the Marquis of Jiyuan. When the Marquis of Jiyuan received this news, his expression was strange. He looked a little emotional but also a little worried. After thinking for a moment, he ordered someone to send over a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. He immediately wrote a letter and handed it over to his personal guard. Send someone to deliver this letter to that person. Tell him that Yun Sanglong's illness has been cured. Chapter 219. After learning that his two children had fought in the restaurant, Yun Ba rushed into the restaurant like an enraged lion. Inside the restaurant, the tables, chairs, and floor were all smashed to pieces. Yun Sangshua was drenched in water and her hair was disheveled. She stood in a daze, her cheeks puffed up as if a steamed bun had been stuffed into her mouth. Yun Songlong stood there in a daze with a vexed expression. When he saw Yun Songlong's hand, Yun Ba was overjoyed. Songlong could move his hand. But then he saw the frightened Oriole and indifferent Yun Sheng. This female magician again? Why did he run into her everywhere? The floor of the restaurant was filled with traces of magic being used, and the floor was littered with Yun family guards. This made Yun Ba feel even more upset. In Yun Ba's mind, if the Yun family made a mistake, even if they had to be punished, it was their own business. Yun Songlong teaching Yun Songxue a lesson was a family matter. But that female magician was an outsider. She had hurt Yun Songxue and her son. That was unacceptable. Father, second brother hit me. He even wanted to kill you. Yun Songxue seemed to have been beaten silly by Yun Songlong. She cried when she saw Yun Ba. She pulled over Tang Yu, whose knees were broken, and knelt in front of Yun Ba, sobbing. She understood her father the best. Ever since her eldest brother Yun Songhai left the residence, the Yun family's bloodline had become her father's top priority. Because her second brother was crippled, he refused to marry and have children. Although He Yu-er was a disappointment, he had become the Yun family's only hope to continue the family's bloodline. Songxue, sigh. Yun Ba had a strong personality and was the most protective. When he saw the miserable state of the mother and son pair, his earlier dissatisfaction with the mother and son disappeared by 70 to 80%. He had heard about today's matter from his spies on the way here. The source of the truth was indeed Tang Yu's disappointment. Among his 3 children, the most carefree one was Yun Songhai. Yun Songxue was unruly and headstrong. His second son Yun Songlong was more reserved. However, among the 3 of them, Yun Songlong was the most loyal. Today, Tang Yu had almost insulted the family of the Yun family army. If Tang Yu didn't give a proper apology, Yun Songlong would really punish her according to military law. But even if they failed to live up to expectations, Yun Songlong and his mother were still part of the Yun family. Songlong, Songxue owes you an explanation for what happened to the Yun family army. However, these are all family matters and there is no need to use military law. You've already fought and broken Yuer's knees. Let's just let this matter pass. As for you, Yun Ba's words suddenly changed as he glared at Yun Sheng. Little girl, you hit my daughter and injured my guards. If I, Yun Ba, don't get justice today, I'm afraid that my Marshal Saint General's estate will not be able to establish itself in Zhou State in the future. Yun Ba's words were filled with killing intent. No matter how well the news of the incident at the restaurant was kept under wraps, it was bound to spread throughout the entire capital. Tomorrow at the imperial court, Elder Qin and the other civil officials would definitely use Yun Ba's lack of discipline as an excuse to file a complaint. Since that was the case, Yun Ba had to find a scapegoat for today's incident and the most suitable candidate was Yun Sheng. Yun Sheng smiled mockingly as she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Father Yen-er is my savior. It can be said that my hand was healed by her. In order to protect Songxue and her son, you took your anger out on Yen-er. I will be the first to disagree with this. Yun Songlong didn't expect his father to push all the blame onto Yun Sheng. Father, was he muddle-headed? Yun Songxue and her son were overjoyed. Once Yun Ba made a move, that annoying female magician would definitely die. This old man hasn't finished speaking. Although you injured Songxue and her son, you are indeed my Yun estate's great benefactor. This old man is extremely grateful that you saved my second son's hand. Yun Ba bowed slightly towards Yun Sheng. Yun Ba's actions startled everyone in the restaurant. Yun Ba was the martial saint of Zhou State and a first-rank official. The previous emperor had specially bestowed upon him the honor of not having to bow when meeting the emperor of Zhou State due to his meritorious service. His bow to Yun Sheng was an honor that even the imperial capital of Zhou State didn't enjoy. Yun Sheng was more than shocked. Yun Ba was her grandfather in terms of seniority. How could she accept this bow? She decisively dodged to the side and pushed the Oriole out. Old General, I can't accept this bow. It's right and proper for a doctor to treat others. If the residents of Yun really owes someone something, then you owe the Yun family soldiers and their families. Yun Ba had already investigated the situation of the Yun family army. Yun Songxue had indeed withheld the Yun family army's salary. In the past 5 years, the Yun estate had never paid a single cent to the Yun family army. Many of the soldiers' families had suffered from hunger and cold because of this. The entire military camp was now like scattered sand, with many people freezing and starving to death every year. No, the Oriole doesn't dare. The Oriole was so scared that her face drained of color when she saw the gray-haired Yun Ba. She knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. Although the Oriole has complained about the Yun estate, she has never hated old General's family. The Oriole's mother suffered a hemorrhage when she gave birth to the Oriole. It was only because young General Yun personally invited a doctor that the Oriole was able to survive. Father once said that the Huang family will be servants of the Yun estate for the rest of their lives. The Oriole's forehead hit the ground like a chick pecking at rice. Soon, her forehead was covered in blood. Seeing this, Yun Songlong felt even more guilty. Yun Ba's eyes were also gloomy. All parents in the world were pitiful. He had inverted right and wrong today. In order to protect Yun Songxue and her son, he had implicated the innocent. When had he ever felt good in his heart? Distinguishing between kindness and hatred is the teachings of the Yun estate's ancestors. What the Yun estate owes, this old man will definitely repay. However, what others owe the Yun estate, this old man will definitely take back. Little girl, seeing that you saved my son, this old man can spare your life. However, your sorcery cannot be kept. Yun Ba's words implied that he wanted to destroy Yun Sheng's Dharma soul. Haha, but what if I refuse? Yun Sheng's expression darkened and her heart froze. This was her good grandfather. For the sake of a good-for-nothing descendant, he actually wanted to destroy her Dharma soul? Such a rude and unreasonable person. It was no wonder that her father, Yun Songhai, had left the general's estate in anger. This little girl really didn't know what was good for her. Under such circumstances, she still didn't beg for mercy. Yun Ba couldn't help but feel angry. He had already given Yun Sheng a way out. He only destroyed her sorcery and wouldn't hurt her in the slightest. However, if she had begged, perhaps he would have been soft-hearted and show mercy. However, this little girl had a thorny temper. Once she opened her mouth, she didn't give him any leeway at all. This made Yun Ba even more embarrassed. If you are truly young and ignorant, in front of this old man, what's the use of saying no? To prevent others from saying that this old man is bullying the young, I will use 10% of my power to fight with you. If you can withstand 3 moves from this old man will let you go. Yun Ba's gaze was piercingly cold as he stared sternly at Yun Sheng. When Yun Songlong heard this, he was about to step forward but was stopped by a few secret guards of the Yun estate. It looked like she couldn't escape 3 moves from a martial saint. A faint trace of bitterness flashed through her heart. Yun Sheng smiled bitterly and walked forward. Then, old general, please show me your moves. Yun Sheng held the magic scepter in her hand and bowed with cupped fists. Chapter 220. Hiss. Bu Jiuxiao and Qing Bai both sucked in a breath of cold air. Was this girl crazy or stupid? Was she really going to exchange blows with Yun Ba? That was Yun Ba, the famous martial saint of Zhou State. Although Yun Ba had faded from the public eye over the years, the legends about him had never stopped in the great Zhou Empire. What kind of realm was the martial saint realm? To put it simply, if Yun Ba didn't like the Royal Magic Academy, he could raze it to the ground with a single combat technique. Yi Baiming frowned as he looked at Yun Sheng. There was no trace of fear on her face. You. Yun Ba's anger was stuck in his throat. It was as if he was seeing his eldest son Yun Songhai many years ago, using the same tone to break off relations with him. Why was it that none of them had any leeway to turn things around? Alright, watch carefully for the first move. Yun Ba hadn't fought with anyone in a long time. He didn't expect that this time he would be fighting with a silly girl. Red gold combat energy flowed on the surface of Yun Ba's body. After a series of crackling sounds like beans being fried, Yun Ba roared and a fierce burst of combat energy burst forth from his fist. The color of the combat energy was dazzling, just like the fireball that Yun Sheng had released. However, the speed of the combat energy was several times faster than the fireball. Yun Sheng had no time to dodge. Her body was thrown back with a bang and smashed into the wall. A 2 to 3 meter wide depression immediately appeared on the wall. Yun Sheng fell to the ground, a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. In the private room, Yi Baiming felt a heavy blow to his chest. He felt a suffocating pain that instantly spread throughout his body. It was as if the one who had taken the blow wasn't Yun Sheng but himself. Why did he feel this way? Yi Baiming couldn't help but feel suspicious. From the martial realm to the martial saint realm, battle techniques were usually only used at the very end. Yun Ba only needed to use the most basic moves, even if it was just a punch or a kick, to kill his opponent. His goal was very simple. He wanted to defeat Yun Sheng quickly. With the physique of an ordinary mage, a single hit like this would be enough to shatter all the bones in her body, shatter all her meridians, and leave her bedridden for half a year. It was fucking painful. The old man's speed and strength were indeed astonishing. Yunsheng slowly stood up. She didn't even have the chance to recite a spell before she could do so. Little girl, you should just obediently let this old man cripple your Dharma soul. Yunba also sighed. From the Shin-Nong medical bracelet, a stream of divine power quickly flowed out, desperately repairing Yunsheng's shattered bones. Of his entire body, only those 3 strange tendons were still intact. Yunsheng staggered and finally stood up straight. She licked the blood on her lips and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. The second move. Good. The second move. Yunba couldn't help but tremble. He hadn't been on the battlefield for many years. Who would have thought that today he would be so excited by a junior whose cultivation was so much lower than his own? Yunsheng was actually able to stand up after taking that move. This in itself was quite a big blow to Yunba. Yunba's body seemed to swell with fighting aura revolving around him. He suddenly stomped his foot. The strength of this stomp was like a magnitude 9 earthquake, and the entire floor of the restaurant exploded. This century-old restaurant had suffered a calamity today. The restaurant owner's eyes turned black, and he directly fainted. Yunba stomped his foot with a force of 10,000 kilograms. But the strange thing was, the floor of the restaurant didn't explode because of this stomp. The ground split into several pieces and countless rocks rose from the ground. Each one was 3 meters long and 2 meters wide, and each one weighed over 200 kilograms. They were like countless earth spikes, like a stone prison, surrounding Yunsheng tightly. Everyone couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Yunsheng. With her delicate body, how could she withstand several huge boulders that weighed 200 kilograms? Even if Yunsheng used earth magic, it would be very difficult for her to break through these huge rocks. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Yunba had experienced countless battles in his life, from the battlefield to personal combat. The reason he was able to reach the Martial Saint realm today was definitely not because of simple hard work. He was very good at analyzing his opponents. From an army with thousands of soldiers and horses to a cultivator of the same level as him, Yunba could analyze his opponent's weakness in the shortest amount of time. Yunsheng was a fire and earth magic master, which meant that she could use earth and fire magic, and at least one of them was at the same level. But even if she used earth spikes, it would be impossible for her to shatter the huge rocks. Yunba couldn't help but feel a little proud. He laughed loudly and said, "Little girl, you'd better beg for mercy. Otherwise you'll be trapped to death under these huge rocks." Just as Yunba was feeling proud, a dark shadow that was hard to see with the naked eye quickly climbed up the huge rocks. Yi Baiming suddenly stood up. He leaned forward and looked at the huge rocks in disbelief. He could feel the soul in his body becoming restless. This feeling. It wasn't unfamiliar. It was as if he had found something that he had lost for a long time. The huge rocks trembled. Suddenly there was a loud bang. Earth spikes that looked like the fangs of wild beasts instantly shattered the huge rocks with incredible strength and speed. The moment the huge rocks shattered, several flame bursts smashed towards Yunba like meteors. Yunba's face was filled with shock and astonishment. It looked very comical. How was this possible? What kind of earth spikes did she practice? They could actually shatter huge rocks that weighed thousands of kilograms in an instant. This was heaven-defying. Yunba naturally didn't know that ordinary earth spikes were able to shatter huge rocks that weighed thousands of kilograms. These were mid-level darkness spikes that Yunsheng had fused with the darkness thorns. With one stab, even the toughest ore could be pierced through instantly. When she pierced through the ore, she also instantly released several flame bursts. Courtesy was not reciprocated. It was definitely Yunsheng. However, Yunsheng had still underestimated Martial Saint Yunba. Although the flame bursts were more than 10 times faster than fireballs, and their power was even more shocking, Yunba couldn't injure Yunba. However, how could Yunba be injured by a few mere flame explosions? A layer of pure gold battle chi floated on the surface of Yunba's body. His cheeks contracted as he forcefully inhaled a breath of air. Yunba inhaled and exhaled. The fighting aura in his chest was quickly compressed and spat out with a puff. That fighting aura was swift, fast and sharp. In midair, it transformed into a fierce fighting aura tiger. Everyone said that magic was dazzling and battle techniques were simple. However, when one's fighting aura was trained to the extreme, it could also transform into a fierce beast like magic. The fierce tiger bent its 4 limbs on the ground. It looked like a fierce tiger descending from the mountain. The fighting aura tiger raised its head and roared. Facing the burning flame bursts, it was done in one move. Boom. The fighting aura tiger swallowed the flame bursts. Its eyes were filled with murderous intent. After swallowing the flame bursts, it pounced even more ferociously. Aiming at Yun Sheng, its claws slashed down like an axe. Thank you Shui Rin, Empty Lane of the City of Brisk, Yizi and Yin Xiaoji for your tips. I won't say anything else. Tomorrow the wild cat and the fox will reunite. On Monday I'll make the ranking. Chapter 221. Not good. Yun Ba's face drained of color as soon as the fierce tiger appeared. Just now Yun Sheng's attack had been extremely fast, and he had reacted almost instinctively. This fierce fighting aura tiger had reached 50% of his usual strength. The fierce tiger descends the mountain, crushing an army of 1,000. His original intention was to cripple that little girl's Dharma soul, not take her life. But it was already too late to stop him now. At this moment Yun Sheng also knew that she was doomed. She didn't expect that she would die at the hands of her own grandfather. In the midst of this crisis, a pair of angry gray eyes barged into Yun Sheng's vision. She only felt a pair of strong hands around her waist. As the world spun she saw Yi Baiming. He used his back to block that fatal blow for her. The smell of blood filled the air. The fierce fighting aura tiger's paw slashed down, forcibly tearing off a large piece of flesh from Yi Baiming's body. Little wild cat, we meet again. Yi Baiming's thin, blade-like lips curled up. His gray eyes were like stars that filled the sky. Why was he here? Yi Baiming's appearance suddenly changed the situation. Yun Ba immediately withdrew his fighting aura. He had come in a hurry and didn't expect that there would be someone else in the private room upstairs. Moreover, this person was Yi Baiming, the Northern Underworld King. Although Yi Baiming was the dethroned former crown prince, he was still a member of Zhou State's imperial family. Injuring him was a crime of disobedience. Even Yun Ba couldn't disregard this. Northern Underworld King, how could you? This is a matter between this old subject and the little girl. Your Highness has broken the rules by intervening halfway. Yun Ba's face was full of vexation. 3 moves had passed, but Yun Ba still hadn't defeated the little girl. According to their previous agreement, he had to let Yun Sheng go. However, as the martial sage of Zhou State, it was already very impolite for him to teach a junior girl a lesson. If word got out that he couldn't defeat Yun Sheng in 3 moves, he would lose all his face. Yi Baiming didn't look too good. That attack just now had been extraordinarily powerful. Fortunately, it had landed on him. If it had landed on the person in his arms, he was afraid that there was no fear. From now on, as long as he was around, no one would be able to hurt the little wild cat. Seeing that Yun Ba was still pestering her endlessly, Yun Sheng was also angered. Old General Yun, you keep saying that you want to get justice for Yun Sangxue and her son. Dare I ask, what is justice? Could it be that the so-called justice is because they are members of the Yun family? Yun Sheng mocked. Her eyes faintly sparkled, but she felt that it was not worth it for her father and herself. Then what if I say that my surname is Yun and my name is Sheng, and my father is Yun Sanghai? Yun Ba's tall body shook violently as if he had been struck by lightning. Yun Sanglong and Yun Sangxue were also shocked. Yun Yu stammered, I remember now. You are that dirty girl. That's right, it's me. 2 years ago when my father was seriously ill, he told me that I still had family in the Jade Capital. I was full of hope and brought him to the Jade Capital, but who knew that I would be refused entry to the Martial Sage General's estate? Today the Martial Saint General's estate humiliated me once again. I, Yun Sheng, swear that from today onwards, I will never take half a step into the General's estate. Yun Sheng's words were filled with anger and accusation. Her eyes were about to spit fire. In Yi Baiming's arms, the body trembling from anger made Yi Baiming's heart ache. She had gone through so much in these 2 years. It was no wonder that he couldn't recognize her. In Banana Leaf Village, that crafty and clever little wild girl had become calm and sharp. At that moment, Yi Baiming felt a kind of loneliness from her. That kind of loneliness made his heart ache. At that moment, he wanted to hug her tightly and comfort her. Little wild cat, let's go home. Yi Baiming's heart ached, but at the same time he rejoiced. If he hadn't felt the familiar fluctuation of the dark spiritual soul on Yun Sheng's body, he would have missed her. Home? Where was her home? After Yun Sheng's anger, she felt physically and mentally exhausted. Luckily, Yi Baiming was supporting her. The two of them walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind the dumbfounded Cheng Bai Bu Jiuxiao and the rest of the Yun family. Haha, hello old General Yun, hello General Yun. Congratulations to young General Yun for recovering your left hand. Congratulations to old General Yun for reuniting with your grandchild. Cheng Bai and Bu Jiuxiao hurriedly followed after Yi Baiming. Under the glares of the people of the residence of Yun, Cheng Bai spouted a bunch of nonsense. In his heart he was cursing Yi Baiming. So what if his legs are long? He can run faster than a rabbit. He's a classic example of someone who only cares about the opposite sex. Are the two of you from the Wushuan Everlasting School? Today's matter involves the Yun family. I hope the two of you won't leak it out. The only one who was still somewhat clear-headed was Yun Songlong. General Yun, don't worry. Today's matter, especially Divine Dr. Yan's background, we definitely won't leak it out. But we also have a presumptuous request. It's related to the Northern Nether King. Today the Northern Nether King and we didn't appear in the restaurant. Bu Jiuxiao also politely returned the greeting. Yi Baiming was able to block Yun Ba's fatal attack. His strength, Yun Songlong immediately understood. He and Bu Jiuxiao nodded tacitly. Only then did Bu Jiuxiao pull away Cheng Bai, who was full of nonsense, and leave. Yun Songlong looked at his father with a pained expression. He should have realized it long ago. Little Yin was his eldest brother's daughter. Her temper, her appearance, her shocking talent for magic, and her special magic scepter all proved that she was his eldest brother's daughter. Finally, his eldest brother brought his daughter back, but they were rejected by his so-called family. Father, third sister, I'm too disappointed in the two of you. Father, before eldest brother left, he said that you were stubborn. For the sake of the family's glory, you didn't hesitate to invert right and wrong. I even tried to explain it for you, but now it seems that it's true. Third sister, second brother doesn't object to you inheriting the family business. But if there comes a day when you disgrace the Yun family for your own selfish desires, I'll be the first to not let you off. After today, the Yun family army and I will leave the general's residence and have nothing to do with each other. Yun Songlong finished speaking and walked out with Huang Ke. When Yun Ba regained his senses, the restaurant was already empty. My surname is Yun Songhai. My father is Yun Songhai. That's right, that child's temper was exactly the same as Songhai's when he was young. The way she used the magic scepter and the way she used magic was exactly the same as her father's. That was because she was his granddaughter. She also knew medicine and could cure a strange illness that even the great doctors of the Medicine Emperor's pavilion couldn't. The girl's eyes were filled with determination and disdain. She was Songhai's daughter, his own granddaughter. She had returned, but because of his ignorance and protectiveness, she was rejected at the door. In a day, Yun Ba experienced the reunion of his family, but also the abandonment of his loved ones. Just now she said that Songhai was seriously ill? What happened to Songhai? What happened to his son, the one he was proud of and the one who gave him the most headaches? Could it be that I was wrong? Yun Ba was on the verge of collapse. He closed his eyes in pain. Chapter 222. Yun Sheng supported Yi Baiming. Yun Sheng was petite while Yi Baiming was tall and handsome. In the afterglow of the setting sun, they appeared lofty yet harmonious. Yun Sheng also didn't expect that she would impulsively reunite with Yun Ba. She had always thought that the word, impulsive, did not apply to her. Feeling the burning gaze above her head, Yun Sheng's ears suddenly turned red. She pushed Yi Baiming away. This damn fox. Did he not have the slightest concept of propriety between men and women? He was like this when they were in Banana Leaf Village and he was still like this even after reuniting after such a long time. Unexpectedly, just as Yun Sheng was about to push Yi Baiming away, she heard him cry out. It hurts. Yi Baiming cried out, seeming to be in pain. Did you pull on your wound? Yun Sheng frowned. Yun Ba's tiger of fighting aura just now was very powerful. In order to save her, Yi Baiming was caught off guard and used his flesh and blood to block that attack. He was injured because of her. The two of them were still standing on the street, so it wasn't appropriate for her to check Yi Baiming's wound. After thinking about it, she could only support Yi Baiming and return to the martial arts center first. After returning to the martial arts center's medicinal hall, Yun Sheng took off Yi Baiming's clothes. Sure enough, there was a hideous wound on his back that was so deep that bone could be seen. It stretched across his entire back. Originally, with Yi Baiming's physique, a single wound wouldn't cause much harm to him. However, Yun Sheng saw many old wounds underneath that wound. With the addition of new wounds and old wounds, the situation wasn't so optimistic. Who told you to jump out and save me without even saying anything? Do you think you're Lei Feng? Yun Sheng wasn't in a good mood. She didn't like to owe people favors. Now that Yi Baiming had saved her, how was she supposed to repay him? What is a****? Yi Baiming glanced at Yun Sheng from the corner of his eyes. When he narrowed his eyes, he looked like a lazy leopard. He raised his thick eyebrows and said, "You're a woman. You won't look good if you have a scar." His voice was deep and magnetic. Yun Sheng's heart skipped a beat when she heard his words. "It's my business whether I look good or not. Even if it's my business, it's only my business. In any case, I'll be the only one watching in the future." Yi Baiming's almost unreasonable words sounded very ambiguous when they came out of his mouth. Because of Yi Baiming's words, the temperature in the narrow pharmacy suddenly rose by a few degrees. It wasn't the first time that Yun Sheng had seen Yi Baiming take off his clothes. But compared to 2 years ago, Yi Baiming had completely grown into a man. His bronze skin had a metallic luster, his strong and firm muscles, and the new and old scars on his body all showed that he was no longer the reclusive youth from Jianghu village. "What nonsense are you talking about? Turn around. I want to see your wounds." Yun Sheng only felt upset. Yi Baiming obediently turned around. Only Yun Sheng could make the dignified Lord Baiming as docile as a little lamb. "Why won't you acknowledge me?" When they were in the restaurant, even though Yun Sheng had only explained what had happened in the past 2 years in a few words, Yi Baiming could not help but feel heartache when he read between the lines. In the past 2 years, how did she, as a child, deal with the blow of her father being seriously ill and being kicked out of the Marshal St. General's residence? Although he already knew that the little wild cat was very strong-willed when he was in Jianghu village. But she was just a child after all. Who knew that you were also in Yujing? What's more, you and I are neither relatives nor friends. Yun Sheng curled her lips. "I once said that as long as you heal my eyes, I will be your retainer." Yi Baiming suddenly turned around and grabbed Yun Sheng's hand that was applying medicine. His suddenly accelerated heartbeat passed through his skin to the deepest part of Yun Sheng's heart. "Retainer? Is this kid joking?" If Yun Sheng remembered correctly, retainers came from the Penglai state. In order to let the summoners grow better, every summoner would have a retainer. They were either powerful warriors or powerful magicians. They would protect the summoner for the rest of their lives. Yi Baiming said that he wanted to be her retainer. If he was still the young man in the Dharma temple, it would be feasible. But his identity was the dignified Lord Baiming of Zhou State. "You want to be my retainer?" Did the Emperor of Zhou State agree? "Don't forget that I am not the daughter of the Yun family. I am just an ordinary magician." Yun Sheng mocked herself. She had been in the Wuji land for several years and had some understanding of the Wuji land. Compared to the modern world, the Wuji land had a strong sense of hierarchy and class. When men and women married, they paid attention to matching social status, not to mention the royal family of Zhou State who had a noble bloodline. Today she broke with Yun Ba, which meant that she had completely severed her relationship with the Yun family. Yi Baiming wanting to be her retainer was a joke in her eyes. It has nothing to do with the Emperor of Zhou State. Yi Baiming was very dissatisfied with Yun Sheng's reaction. He, the Lord Baiming, had been very popular in Zhou State ever since he regained his sight. He was willing to lower himself and be this woman's retainer. But her reaction just now was as disgusting as if she had eaten a fly. "I don't agree. I have Xiaohei and Bobo. I don't need anyone's protection. Besides, you've saved me once today, so we're even now." Yun Sheng was already a scepter summoner. She had already unlocked 3 mystic veins, and she even had the summoning demon hand. She could summon a domain-level ant king that could destroy an entire city at any time. She didn't need any retainer. "Little wild cat, the more you want to distance yourself from this prince, the more you can't. I want to be your retainer. Besides fulfilling my promise, there is another reason. It is because we must be together." Yi Baiming saw Yun Sheng's disdainful expression. He was angry, but he couldn't help but want to tease her. "What do you mean?" Yun Sheng put some distance between Yi Baiming and her vigilance. She was too close to this guy. The strong masculine scent on his body made her feel that her breathing and heartbeat were abnormal. In her previous life, Lu Minglang had brought her too much pain. In this life, she didn't want to experience that pain again. As a prince, Yi Baiming would definitely be second only to one person. With his outstanding appearance and outstanding talent, he would definitely attract countless women. Yun Sheng wasn't willing. She didn't want to become one of his countless women. "Because you stole my soul. And my heart." Yi Baiming curled his lips seductively, revealing a thought-provoking smile. He suddenly stretched out his long arm and pulled Yun Sheng into his embrace. She was different from the skinny little girl from before. The current Yun Sheng was different from before. Because of the jade marrow technique and the increase in her magic cultivation, her height and figure were completely different from before. Yi Biming immediately fell in love with this feeling when he held her in his arms. A wave of magic elements quickly seeped into Yun Sheng's body. Yun Sheng felt that her soul seemed to have been summoned by something and quickly became active. Ding! A sound was heard. It was like the sound of nature. The entire medicine hall was filled with a colorful light. Within the light, Yun Sheng's soul and Yi Biming's soul appeared at the same time. Chapter 223. At this moment, if someone were to barge into the medicine hall, they would definitely be shocked by the magical scene before them. Fortunately, when Yun Sheng returned, she had already warned the people in the medicine hall not to enter without permission. The current position of the two was extremely ambiguous. Yi Biming's clothes were half removed, and his arms were tightly wrapped around Yun Sheng's slender waist like iron bars. The five-colored Dharma soul was like a rainbow, reflecting each other's splendor in the medicine hall. The Dharma soul in Yun Sheng's body was originally obtained from Yi Biming. Yi Biming's Dharma soul was the mother, and Yun Sheng's Dharma soul was the son. If Yun Sheng didn't use her magic, especially her dark Dharma soul, Yi Biming wouldn't be able to recognize Yun Sheng immediately. However, just now in the restaurant, Yun Sheng had activated the dark thorns and used her dark Dharma soul to break through Yun Ba's second attack. Yi Biming had immediately discovered Yun Sheng. In the entire world, only Yun Sheng's Dharma soul could guide Yi Biming's Dharma soul. After not seeing each other for 2 years, Yun Sheng and Yi Biming's five-colored Dharma souls had improved to a certain extent. Yun Sheng originally thought that with her hard work and cultivation and various fortuitous encounters, she would definitely be able to catch up to Yi Biming's cultivation. However, now that she compared herself to him, she finally understood what it meant to be infuriated. Yi Biming's five-colored Dharma soul was twice as big as her Dharma soul. At first glance, the two Dharma souls were as tall as the two of them. This was too unreasonable. Wasn't this kid a martial artist? She was a magician. Who would have thought that an amateur could improve faster than a professional? The most infuriating thing was that once Yun Sheng's Dharma soul saw Yi Biming's Dharma soul, it seemed to have found its home and kept circling around Yi Biming's Dharma soul. However, this wasn't the only thing that surprised Yun Sheng. After the two Dharma souls gathered together, their Dharma souls actually became a little bigger in an instant. What's going on? Yun Sheng was puzzled. Have you heard of dual cultivation? Yun Sheng's body was soft and fragrant. Yi Biming couldn't help but have the urge to knead her into his bones. Dual cultivation? I've only heard of dual cultivation of magic and martial arts. Among the people that Yun Sheng knew, Feng Kuo was a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. Yi Biming was also a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. However, Yi Biming's cultivation speed was much faster than Feng Kuo's. Dual cultivation of magic and martial arts is for magicians who have multi-elemental Dharma souls. Due to their attributes, multi-elemental magicians don't have an innate advantage in terms of cultivation. Yi Biming knocked on Yun Sheng's head. It seemed that the magic classes in the Royal Magic Academy weren't very good. The little wild cat actually didn't even know about dual cultivation of magic and martial arts, which was so important for multi-elemental magicians. Multi-elemental magicians were more talented than the average magician. They were outstanding in terms of learning and comprehending multi-elemental magic. However, after Yun Sheng joined the Royal Magic Academy, due to the needs of her Dharma soul, she also read a large number of ancient books and discovered a shocking fact. In the continent, in the past 200 years, the truly top-notch magicians, including the current Dharma Emperor, were all single-elemental or dual-elemental magicians. The specific reason for this was because of their Dharma souls. The more Dharma souls one had, the better the effect of absorbing the magical elements in the world. But correspondingly, multi-elemental magicians had to face another problem. That was the problem of how to allocate their time and energy. There was a limit to human resources. The more a magician learned, the more magical energy he would need to expend, and the more he would need to focus on a particular type of magic. This was especially true after comprehending mid-level magic and cultivating high-level magic and even more profound magic. This weakness would become even more prominent. Therefore, many magicians, even if they had multi-elemental Dharma souls, would give up on many types of magic when they learned high-level magic and focus on cultivating one type of magic. Take Yun Sheng for example. Her mastery of fire, earth, and darkness was stronger than her mastery of magic in other areas. However, if two magicians were to engage in dual cultivation of magic and martial arts, they would be able to avoid this problem. Take you and me as an example. You and I both have 5 elemental Dharma souls. If we release our Dharma souls at the same time during our daily cultivation, we would be able to form a magical resonance in terms of our understanding of magic. This is the case with the 5-colored Dharma soul that you saw just now. Yi Baiming believed that with Yun Sheng's strong temper, she would definitely not reject dual cultivation of magic and martial arts that would speed up the progress of her magic. If the two of them cultivated together and caused their Dharma souls to resonate, they would be able to speed up their magic cultivation? Yun Sheng was skeptical, but after looking at the situation of their Dharma souls, she became more convinced. Not only can the Dharma souls speed up cultivation, there is another benefit to dual cultivation of magic and martial arts. It can help the two magicians to better comprehend magic. If the two magicians have no grudges, they can even comprehend dual cultivation magic that only the two of them can use. Yi Baiming knew that Yun Sheng was already walking into his trap step by step. Do we really just need to cultivate together? Yun Sheng was almost convinced by Yi Futian's words. Of course, if you want to progress faster, there is another method other than Dharma soul cultivation that is more effective than Dharma soul cultivation. Yi Baiming took advantage of the fact that Yun Sheng was listening attentively and simply half-hugged Yun Sheng and shifted her onto his strong thighs. Yun Sheng didn't notice that she was already sitting on Yi Baiming's thighs. The two of them looked like a pair of lovers who were passionately in love and whispering in each other's ears. Then what is the most effective method? Yun Sheng hoped that she could make a breakthrough in her strength after being lectured by Yun Ba. Due to her identity as a doctor, she had less time to cultivate magic than the average person. If there was a more effective method of cultivation, she would definitely give it a try. You really want to try it? Yi Baiming's gaze was a little mischievous as he scanned her body. Finally, his gaze landed on Yun Sheng's chest that had yet to fully develop. Little wild kitten, she was only 8 years old this year. Why couldn't she grow big? Yi Baiming was a little depressed. Due to the environment in the boundless land, men and women matured early. Usually men were 14 or 15 years old, and women could get married at 13 or 14 years old. However, no matter how one looked at it, Yun Sheng was still a long way from the age where she could get married. Yun Sheng hadn't noticed Yi Baiming's gaze and was a little puzzled. What exactly is the method? You may not know, but on this continent, most of the multi-elemental magicians are husband and wife. Apart from the closeness of their Dharma souls, as long as they are husband and wife and see each other honestly, the effect of absorbing each other's magic power will be greatly increased. Yi Baiming couldn't help but tighten his grip on Yun Sheng's hand. Although little wild kitten had grown a lot compared to 2 years ago, some parts of her body were still too small. Become husband and wife and see each other honestly? Yun Sheng was still a little confused. Suddenly she noticed Yi Baiming's gaze. When she looked down, she realized that she was actually sitting intimately on Yi Baiming's lap. Yun Sheng was angry. She raised her hand and pushed Yi Baiming's chest, breaking free from his embrace. Yi Baiming was in pain, but when he saw Yun Sheng's cheeks puffed up in anger and embarrassment, he laughed heartily. Ahem. Right at this moment, an awkward cough was heard. Yun Songlong stood outside the door. He obviously didn't expect to see such a scene. His newly acknowledged niece and Lord Baiming, whose shirt was completely removed. This scene didn't seem right no matter how he looked at it. Chapter 224. That damned Yi Baiming. Now he wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. When Yun Sheng saw Yun Songlong, she understood that he must have come because of her background. Although she hated Yun Ba, she didn't have any prejudice against second uncle Yun Songlong. Uncle Yun. Yun Sheng threw a bottle of hemostatic medicine and clothes to Yi Baiming and said unhappily, "Treat your wounds yourself. It's getting late, go back to your own place." Yi Baiming nodded at Yun Songlong, then left with a serious expression. When Yi Baiming returned to his residence, Bu Jiuxiao and Cheng Bai had already been waiting for a long time. Cheng Bai's eyes were sharp, and he immediately saw that under Yi Baiming's sexy ribs, there were a few red marks that looked like a woman's claws. Combined with the scene of Yi Baiming and Yun Sheng leaving together, Cheng Bai immediately became interested and smiled mischievously. "You're finally back. Hurry up and confess. How did you meet that little godly doctor? I say, you brat, aren't you a little too fast? You've only known each other for a few days and you're already hugging and scratching her. The situation is very intense." Cheng Bai's words were very explicit, and even Yi Baiming felt very awkward when he heard them. Bu Jiuxiao appeared much calmer. "Cheng Bai, don't make a fuss. Let Bei Ming explain." From the looks of it, it doesn't look like they just met. This was also the most strange thing about Bu Jiuxiao. Last time when Yi Baiming saw Yun Sheng, he was still indifferent. But this time, especially when the Yun family's girl was almost injured, Yi Baiming obviously couldn't sit still. He ignored the danger of exposing his true strength and forcibly took on Yun Ba's attack. The Yun family's girl was very important to him. Yi Baiming had grown up with them. When he was imprisoned in the cold palace, the only woman he knew, other than those in the palace, was Chen Lianhe. I met her 2 years ago. She cured my eyes. Yi Baiming recalled the scene when the two first met, as well as the short but very warm days they spent in Jiaoye village. Yi Baiming's voice could not help but soften, and his eyes were filled with a rare gentleness. Cheng Bai and the others had known Yi Baiming for so many years, but this was the first time they had seen their good friend reveal such an expression. They immediately understood that Yi Baiming liked the girl from the Yun family. And from the looks of it, he seemed to like it very much. But her identity. If she returns to her family, maybe you can ask the Emperor of Zhou State to grant you a marriage. You two can be considered a match. But that girl is stubborn. You saw how she broke off relations with Yun Ba today. If she doesn't acknowledge Yun Ba, she will be a commoner. The imperial family cannot marry commoners. Cheng Bai was more concerned about the issue of matching social status. Perhaps in other people's eyes, Yi Baiming was only a dethroned crown prince. But Cheng Yinbu knew very well that Yi Baiming would not just be an ordinary prince. Especially when the crown prince of Zhou State was still a good-for-nothing. Yi Baiming's rise was only a matter of time. Whether she is a commoner or a direct descendant of the Yun family, I only know that she is the one I have set my mind on. But it is still too early to talk about marriage. This year, she is only 8 years old. How could a woman who had half of his soul be a mere commoner? Yi Baiming's confidence in Yun Sheng was self-evident from his words. At this time in the medicine hall, Yun Sheng still did not know that she had been targeted by a certain fox. She invited Yun Songlong to sit down and poured him some tea. Both uncle and niece were silent. You are really my eldest brother's daughter? You said your name is Yun Sheng? Yun Songlong was excited as he carefully examined Yun Sheng. Second uncle. I should actually call you second uncle. Father often mentions you. Yun Sheng nodded. Then where is your father now? Why didn't he return to the Yun residence? Don't blame your grandfather. He is just stubborn. After he chased your father away, he did not leave his room for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Your father's courtyard has always been the same as it was back then. Yun Songlong also knew that Yun Sheng had a deep misunderstanding of the Yun residence. Second uncle, I don't blame anyone. Father left the Yun residence to protect mother. He never thought of returning to the Yun residence. It was because of me that he returned to the Jade capital. Father is currently unconscious. Yun Sheng's voice softened when she mentioned her father, Yun Songhai. She told Yun Songlong about the strange poison in Yun Songhai's body. Yun Songlong was extremely agitated when he found out that his beloved elder brother had become like this. What poison is it? Have you found someone to take a look at him? I know the great physician of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Why don't we bring him to take a look? After Yun Songlong spoke, he realized that he had said something wrong. He forgot that his niece was a godly doctor with medical skills. Furthermore, she was proficient in demonic medicine and ancient medical skills. She could even cure his PTSD. For a strange poison that even she was helpless against, even a great physician would not be able to cure it. This is something that Sheng does not understand. When father was living in Banana Leaf Village, he was already poisoned. This proves that the poison was brought back from outside. Second uncle, do you know what kind of enemies father has? If we can find the person who poisoned him, it will be much easier to treat him. Yun Sheng did not want her father to remain unconscious. Your father is a forthright and righteous person. He doesn't have many enemies. On the other hand, your mother. Yun Sheng, don't blame me for smearing your mother's name. Although I don't know why your grandfather insisted on rejecting the marriage between your father and your mother, I vaguely know that your mother seems to have killed an important person from the Zhao state. When Yun Songhai and Yun Ba fell out, Yun Songlong was not in the Jade capital. When he found out that his elder brother had left home, he immediately rushed back without stopping. However, his elder brother had already left. He had asked Yun Songxue about it, but Yun Songxue was not willing to talk about it. Mother actually killed an important person from the Zhao state? What kind of important person was he? Could he be one of the top few people in the Zhao state? Yun Sheng did not know anything about her mother, Hu Jiusheng. However, from the situation of the puffed egg and the fact that she had defeated her father, she was probably more powerful than her father, Yun Songhai. Hearing this, Yun Xing finally understood why her grandfather was so against her parents' marriage. The Zhao state was the holy temple of the summoners in the Wuji land. The top summoners of the land gathered there. Due to the scarcity of summoners, the branches of the Zhao state in the Zhao state did not have much power. However, this did not mean that the Zhao state could be underestimated. In fact, in Penglai the Zhao state was said to be more powerful than the emperor. Some people even said that Penglai was actually controlled by the Zhao state. Yun Xing's mother had a mysterious background. She was also a summoner. Since she had killed an important person from the Zhao state, she would be hunted down by the entire Zhao state. The house of Yun was deeply rooted in the Zhao state. However, compared to the unpredictable Zhao state, it was difficult to defend against them. It seemed that the poison in her father's body was related to the Zhao state. Thank you to Feng Qinghuang, Empty Lane of Brisk City, Bangxia, Yin Xiaoji, Mao Xiaoya, and Qing Dongmei for their tips. Some girls asked why they had to pay for the books. This shouldn't happen. I'm already very happy that everyone is supporting the original. Chapter 225. After the uncle and niece talked for a while, it was already time to light the lanterns. Yun Songlong also told Yun Xing about his falling out with the Yun residents. After hearing this news, Yun Xing was moved, but also felt a little guilty towards Yun Songlong. Second uncle, you didn't have to do this. To put it bluntly, the Yun residence's matter is only Xing Er's personal matter. You are the only child in the family. If you leave like this, I'm afraid that the Yun residence will be even more. Xing Er, you are both grandchildren of the Yun family, but you and that brat Tang, you are worlds apart. Actually, I know a little about the filthy things that third sister has done these years. However, due to my serious illness, I was unable to interfere in these matters. Yun Songlong's face was gloomy. He also felt guilty towards Yun Songxue. Both his father and he were not good at running a business. There was also no mistress in the residence, so Yun Songxue took care of everything by herself. This resulted in Yun Songxue's rude and unreasonable personality. When Yun Songlong sent the Oriole back to the Yun army, he realized that the Yun army situation was much worse than he had imagined. He came to find Yun Xing not only to ask about his big brother's situation, but also to ask Yun Xing to treat the aftereffects of his old subordinates. He planned to reorganize the Yun army. Even if he left the Yun residence, he still had to plan for the livelihood and future of the thousands of people in the Yun army. Second uncle, don't worry. I will take care of the soldiers' physical and mental health. Tomorrow morning I will go with you to the camp. Yun Xing patted her chest and promised, however, the condition of your hand is a little special. I still need to examine it for a while. You have a good relationship with Deputy Curator Qi, so why don't you stay in the dojo first? Once your hand has fully recovered, you can move to the Yun army. Yun Songlong's hand injury was something that Yun Xing couldn't understand. Earlier, when Yun Xing examined his hand, she confirmed that his duki was sealed by a special method. He needed to wait until Yun Sheng's soul-healing divine needle broke through to the 5th level before she could help him circulate his blood and circulate his qi to open up the blocked meridians. In the previous few treatments, Yun Xing only helped him to regain some feeling in his hand. It was not to the point where he could raise his hand or even slap someone. However, in the restaurant, Yun Songlong's hand was suddenly able to move. She had obviously investigated Yun Sheng's medical knowledge, so she planned to keep Yun Songlong by her side to observe the specific condition of Yun Songlong's hand. Yun Songlong had already informed his good friend, Combat Strength, that he would be settling down in the dojo for a while. In the next few days, Yun Xing went to the Yun army as per the agreement between her and Yun Songlong. The Yun army's situation was worse than she had imagined. Other than a portion of the soldiers suffering from battle trauma, the Yun family had not looked after the Yun army for many years, so the soldiers' morale was lax and there was no discipline to speak of. Yun Xing also met Oriole's father, a middle-aged soldier around 40 years old. At this age he should be in the prime of his life, but Oriole's father was also a typical soldier suffering from battle trauma. He also couldn't afford to hire a superb doctor like de Guichot, so he could only let his condition worsen. Fortunately, he still had his family and Oriole's careful care, so he wasn't tortured to death. But even so, when Yun Xing saw Oriole Huang, his complexion was still fine. It was just that his figure was a bit thin and weak, and his pair of cloudy eyes were empty. This was already much better than what Yun Xing had expected. When Yun Xing arrived at Oriole's house, Oriole was feeding her father some thin porridge. "Godly Dr. Yun, you're here." Seeing Yun Sheng, Oriole hurriedly got up. She was a few years older than Yun Sheng. Due to her family's decline, she had to go out to make a living early on. This also trained her character, which was both gentle and strong. She was a very considerate big sister. Oriole had already found out from Yun Sheng that not only was Yun Sheng a magician, she was also a very powerful doctor. She was full of admiration for Yun Sheng. Hearing that Yun Sheng was here to treat her father for free, Oriole was even more grateful. "Your father's battle trauma will be better after a few more visits. His body is very weak due to malnutrition all year round. Here is some magical beast meat, stew it and boil it into porridge. Other than giving it to your father, you should also eat some yourself." Yun Sheng saw that Oriole was thin and gave her some magical beast meat, as well as a few gold coins. Because the name, War Trauma Syndrome, was too complicated for the people of the Boundless Continent, Yun Sheng simply called it, War Trauma Syndrome. Oriole refused for a while, but in the end she refused the gold coins and kept the few pieces of magical beast meat. "Young General Yun found a job for me in Wushuan Everlasting Hall to do laundry for people. I can earn 20 silver coins a month, which is enough to support my family. Oriole will definitely return the money for the magical beast meat to godly Dr. Yun in the future." Oriole felt that being able to meet Yun Songlong and Yun Sheng was already the greatest blessing in her life. Before meeting them, she really thought that she would have to guard her sick father and starve family for the rest of her life. Seeing Oriole's insistence, Yun Sheng also couldn't insist. On the hospital bed, Father Huang let out a series of indistinct cries. "Godly Dr. Yun, you should rest for a while. It won't be too late to stay and eat before leaving. Father probably wants to hear me play the pipa again." Oriole nodded apologetically towards Yun Sheng and took out her pipa. Oriole's pipa skills were not bad, but it was a pity that she was interrupted by Tang Yu's group of hedonistic sons last time. Yun Sheng only heard about 70 to 80% of it. Now that she was fortunate to be able to listen to it again, Yun Sheng also became interested and sat down to listen. Oriole tuned the instrument and plucked the strings. This time she didn't sing but only played the pipa. When Yun Sheng heard it, she didn't play the soft little tune that she used to sing in the restaurant earlier. The strings moved, and the pipa's silver color was full and bright, sonorous and clanging. When the sound of the pipa rang out, Field Officer Huang's turbid eyes on the bed had an additional trace of light. And Yun Sheng also felt that the jade marrow technique in her body had become active, as if it had encountered a violent storm. Yun Sheng only felt that the jade marrow technique in her body had rapidly increased by a large amount. What was going on? Yun Sheng hurriedly circulated her qi to regulate her breathing. She had never encountered such a situation before. The pipa music was like raindrops, from dense to dispersed and gradually calmed down. When Oriole finished plucking the last note, her slender fingers pressed the pipa music. As the music lingered in the air, Yun Sheng only felt that the restless jade marrow technique in her body had gradually calmed down. She felt that her jade marrow technique had improved a little. On the bed, Field Officer Huang had also fallen asleep peacefully. Yun Sheng finally understood why Commandant Huang could still have a breath of life after so many years despite his illness. The reason was because of Oriole's pipa playing. "Oriole, what was the name of the tune you played just now?" Yun Sheng stood up and asked. Chapter 226. Oriole's pipa song was completely different from the song she sang in the restaurant. This song had a strong ancient flavor and was completely different from the folk songs. The feeling of the song was more like a war song. Even Yun Sheng, who didn't know much about music and could only dictate divine songs like Little Apple in the modern era, was filled with passion. According to the changes in her body's jade marrow art and magic soul, the reason why Yun Songlong's hand was able to take a turn for the better was because of Oriole's pipa song. Yun Sheng was certain that while listening to the music, her magic power and jade marrow art could be said to have soared. Her magic power was at least at the peak of the Grand Magus realm, and her jade marrow art could reach the level of breaking through her fourth strange tendon. "Is godly Dr. Yun talking about the song I played just now? I call it the Nameless Song." Yellow Sparrow was very embarrassed after being praised so much. Although Oriole was the daughter of a military general, due to her family's circumstances she lost the qualifications to study and practice martial arts early on. In her early years she had helped some rich families with laundry and chores. One day when she was washing clothes by the river, due to the unbearable cold and hunger, she fainted by the bone-chilling river. The winter was bitterly cold. Just as Oriol's body was frozen stiff and on the verge of death, she heard the sound of a zither. At that time my hands and feet were frozen stiff. I could vaguely see someone playing a zither on the frozen river. That zither sound made one's blood boil, as if one had drunk a large mouthful of pepper. My hands and feet gradually regained feeling. Oriol recalled the past. After listening to the zither sound, Oriol felt that her entire body was filled with strength and she wasn't as cold anymore. By the time she wanted to see who was playing the zither, that person had already left. Oriol only had time to vaguely see a back view. Although it was only a back view, Oriol was certain that it was a woman. That was 4 or 5 years ago. The river where Oriol washed her clothes was called Moon Washing River. It was a river not far from the Yun Army's encampment. Usually there weren't many people here. Because the river water was clear and sweet, it was also the Yun Army's main source of water. Oriol's perception was not bad. After listening to the zither song that time, she remembered most of it in her heart and copied it down when she returned home. Oriol's mother, who had passed away early, was a musician in a music workshop. When Oriol was young and her family was still well off, she had learned some basic musical skills from her mother. She composed her own music and played it. Over time the pipa song came to be. Using the sound of the zither to soothe her father, Captain Huang's illness, was also a clever trick that Oriol had unintentionally discovered. She discovered that every time she played the pipa, her father's dispirited spirit would improve a lot. Therefore the Oriol consciously played a song for his father from time to time. As for the song in the restaurant, some of the notes were taken from this song. Unfortunately, apart from that one time when he met that strange woman by the river, he had never met her again. This song was also incomplete. The Oriol couldn't hear the entire song, and the woman didn't finish playing it. Therefore the Oriol named this song as a nameless song. Oriol, have you ever learned Do Chi or magic? Yun Sheng already had a rough idea of the ins and outs of the matter. The woman that the Oriol met must be an otherworldly expert. To have such a fortuitous encounter was already a kind of blessing. Just like how money was easy to get, fortune was hard to find. Whether or not he could meet that woman again was still unknown. What Yun Sheng was thinking now was that if an ordinary person like the Oriol could play such an effect, then what would the effect be if she learned Do Chi or magic, or if she played it herself? Father taught me some of the most basic fist techniques when I was young, but it has already been many years. I'm afraid that it has already been abandoned. When Oriol heard about Do Chi and magic, there was a touch of crystal in her eyes. Oriol's age was at the prime of her life. In her heart, she was still very envious of Yun Sheng's gorgeous magic and old General Yun's superb fighting skills. She also understood that even if there was only a little chance of becoming a magician or martial artist, the situation of the family could be greatly improved. Yun Sheng pulled out the Oriol's pulse and tested her magic sensing ability. Unfortunately, the Oriol's physique couldn't feel the slightest bit of magic, but the good news was that there was a weak Do Chi in her body. Your bones and tendons are not bad. The only shortcoming is that you missed the best time to practice martial arts. In a few days, when you go to the martial arts school, I will give you some medicine to strengthen your body. Coupled with the basic training of the martial arts school, I think you still have a certain chance to become a martial artist. Yun Sheng liked the Oriol's character very much. Such a woman should not be buried in rough work and endless poverty. After the Oriol got the news, she was very happy. Miracle Dr. Yun, you are simply the benefactor of our family. The Oriol really has nothing to repay. I can see that you like that song very much, so the Oriol will give you the music score. The Oriol took out the music score that she had carefully kept and gave it to Yun Sheng. Yun Sheng cured her father and gave her the opportunity to practice martial arts. To the Oriol, today was the happiest day of her life. If it was in the past, she would never have dreamed that she could become a martial artist. If Yun Sheng was a man, the Oriol would be willing to repay her with her body. This song was very likely related to whether Yun Sheng could completely recover his hand. Yun Sheng was also very interested, so she simply accepted it. After Yun Sheng left the Huang family, she walked in the direction of the Moon Washing River that the Oriol had told her about. The Moon Washing River was located to the north of the Yun Army's encampment. It was surrounded by fertile water grass. In this season, the water grass grew lush green and one could smell the fragrance of the grass from afar. Normally, the shape of the Moon Washing River was like an eyebrow-shaped crescent moon. However, because it had rained a few days ago, the surface of the river was much wider. The crescent moon had become a full moon and the water was full. The watergrass and Artemisia selingensis in the surroundings were also very lush. Yun Xing walked along the river for a while, but she did not find anything suspicious or noteworthy. When she turned over the river bank and was about to walk back, Yun Xing saw a lonely figure standing on the slope beside the river. That person's back was tall and his right arm was empty. He stood from afar, exuding the unique majesty of a soldier. He stood alone on the slope and looked at the gurgling moon-washing river. He was in a daze and did not even react when Yun Xing approached him. Even though it was just his back, Yun Xing recognized him at a glance. Second uncle? Yun Xing did not expect to see Yun Songlong here. Chapter 227. Hearing the movement behind him, Yun Songlong turned around. He obviously didn't expect to bump into his niece Yun Xing here. The moon-scouring river was secluded and there weren't many people around. In the early years, only the Yun family army would come here to get water. After Yun Songlong went to the Yun family army's encampment for inspection today, he recalled some old things from the past and unknowingly came here. He didn't expect that Yun Xing would also come here because she heard the zither music. Yun Songlong's ears turned red like a guilty youth who had been caught red-handed doing something wrong. Xing, why are you here? Yun Songlong's complexion was much better recently. He had already gone to see his elder brother Yun Songhai earlier. Seeing that although Yun Songhai was unconscious, everything was normal, he was relieved. Second uncle, you used to come here often. Have you met a mysterious woman here? Yun Xing pretended to be indifferent and carefully observed Yun Songlong's reaction. Sure enough, when Yun Xing asked about the mysterious woman, Yun Songlong's face showed a hint of astonishment. However, he quickly concealed this obvious astonishment and said indifferently, "This is the Yun family army's encampment. It's an important military area. How could there be a woman here?" He was still stubborn. An old man in his 30s staring blankly at the river. If he wasn't thinking about love, could it be that he wanted to jump into the river like Chuyuan? Yun Xing snorted in her heart. She had heard that Yun Songlong had always been unwilling to marry. On the surface, he said it was because of his hand disease and he didn't want to implicate others. However, who knew if there were other hidden reasons? It's fine if you don't know her. I just went to Yen Kei's house to see Officer Huang's illness. Yen Kei also gave me a zither piece. Second uncle, I remember that you are very proficient in music. Why don't you take a look at it for me? Yun Xing had a good memory. She only took a glance at the piece and remembered it all. When Yun Songlong heard that it was a piece of music, he was somewhat interested and took a look. This is... Xing, Yen Kei gave you this piece of music. Where did she get it from? A crack appeared on Yun Songlong's calm face. This was completely different from his usual good manners. He gripped the paper tightly with his left hand. The song was written down by the Oriole herself. A few years ago, when she was washing clothes by the river, she chanced upon an unfamiliar woman playing music here, so she wrote it down. After listening to this song, I discovered that this song is extraordinary. It can stir up the Do Qi and magic elements in a person's body. When Yun Xing saw Yun Songhai's appearance, she knew that he must know the mysterious woman. She actually still remembers that promise. Yun Songlong's eyes began to heat up. It said that men don't cry easily, but it's only when they are sad. This piece of music that Yun Xing inadvertently got touched a regret that Yun Songlong had buried in his heart for many years. Second uncle, what are you regretting? Do you know this song? Yun Xing struck while the iron was hot and asked Yun Songlong. This song is called the Dihong Song. It's the sacred song of the Dihong city and Xinyuan clan. It's a divine song that can only be learned by the direct bloodline of the Dihong clan. It's very beneficial to a person's cultivation. Legend has it that this battle song is divided into 9 chapters, and it has an extraordinary and shocking effect. Yun Songlong seemed to have made a huge decision before he decided to tell Yun Xing. Could that mysterious woman by the river be the successor of the Dihong city? Yun Xing had never seen the name Dihong in any ancient books. However, looking at Yun Songlong's expression, it wasn't hard to guess that it must be a hidden place. The boundless continent was vast and boundless. The 5 major countries and the eastern capital were only a small part of the forces that surfaced. There were many powerful ancient tribes that were hidden from the eyes of the world. However, it was also these hidden tribes or clans that secretly controlled the movements of the powerful countries in the continent for thousands of years. The Dihong clan was one of these tribes. They vaguely lived in a place called the Dihong city, and the Dihong and Xinyuan clans were connected to the Dihong clan for generations. The people of the Dihong city didn't often interact with the outside world. However, it was known that the Dihong city would send some direct descendants to travel the continent every few years. According to historical records, these people of the Dihong city were either powerful magicians or warriors with astonishing strength. Yun Songlong only said this about the Dihong city. As for how he got to know the people of the Dihong city and the identity of that mysterious woman, Yun Songlong wasn't willing to say anything more. Yun Songlong only said that he was lucky enough to gain the favor of a person of the Dihong city. That person passed on 3 chapters of the Dihong song to him without telling the people of the Dihong clan. The Dihong song was originally a battle song. When played by an ordinary person, it had the effect of promoting blood circulation and replenishing energy. However, if played with a combination of battle energy or mana, the effect would be even better. It was rumored that the ancestor of the Dihong clan had once used the Dihong song to expel an army of tens of thousands of magical beasts by himself and his zither. Of course, that was only a legend. Since the Dihong song had been passed down until now, there were very few people who could unleash the power of the ancestor of the Dihong clan. Yun Songlong also told Yun Sheng that the Dihong song could be played as long as it was played with a musical instrument. It wasn't limited to any musical instrument. It could be played with any musical instrument. Right now, I have no battle energy and have lost my right hand. I no longer have the chance to play the Dihong song. I can only pass on 3 chapters to you. You can try to comprehend it yourself. As for Huang Ke, you can also pass it on to her. However, you have to remind her not to easily demonstrate it in front of others. Yun Songlong still felt that he owed Huang Ke's family. The zither music that Huang Ke heard should only be the first chapter of the Dihong song. That child had only listened to it once and was able to use the weak battle energy in her body to play with such momentum. It was already very difficult. After Yun Sheng received the 3 chapters of the zither music, she looked at them. They didn't seem to be any different from ordinary music. Yun Songlong also reminded Yun Sheng that not everyone could learn and comprehend the Dihong song. Yun Sheng only needed to try it out first. If she encountered any discomfort while playing, she had to immediately stop playing to prevent the zither music from entering her body and injuring her internal organs. The gains would not make up for the losses. Yun Sheng agreed to Yun Songlong's request. Yun Sheng didn't have high hopes for the Dihong song. She didn't know much about music theory. Although the Dihong song was very powerful and made people yearn for it, she didn't force herself to learn it. However, when she thought that the Dihong song might be beneficial for second Uncle Yun's hand injury, Yun Sheng decided to go to Yujing City to buy a musical instrument and see if she could find a suitable instrument to learn the Dihong song. After the uncle and niece finished talking about the past of the Dihong clan, the sky was already filled with multicolored light. The multicolored light reflected on the moon-washing river. It was like a multicolored gauze flowing into the distance amidst the hazy water vapor. Yun Songlong bathed in the multicolored light with a lonely expression on his face. It was only after Yun Sheng urged him a few times that he reluctantly left the moon-washing river. Chapter 228. The uncle and niece walked past the moon-washing river. Their surroundings were already bathed in the night. From the moon-washing river to the Jade capital, there was still a long way to go. During this time they also had to pass through a desolate graveyard. At night, the entire graveyard looked eerie. After Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong walked a few steps, they stopped at almost the same time. One of them had fought on the battlefield all year round, while the other had the Shenong pupil, so his 5 senses were extraordinary. Second uncle, there's something in the graveyard. The thing Yun Sheng was talking about was naturally not something dirty. She could clearly hear 5 or 6 suppressed breathing sounds. There was an ambush in the graveyard. I'm afraid it's a bunch of thieves who rob passers-by. They don't have a strong killing intent on them. Just teach them a lesson. Yun Songlong sighed. His bright eyes landed on a few suspicious shadows in front of them. Although Zhou State hadn't been in a state of war these past few years, because of the appearance of blood cloud beasts and some demonic beasts, some areas weren't stable. The displaced commoners couldn't find a way to survive, so they could only become bandits. Watch me. Yun Sheng didn't bat an eyelid as she quickly chanted. In the graveyard, a few bandits were crawling on the ground. They were preparing to rob the 2 passers-by in the middle of the night. The bandits weren't very old. They ranged from 15 to 20 years old. The leader was a youth called Zhou Quan. Most of them knew some martial arts. The most powerful one, Zhou Quan, was even a martial arts master. They had been lying in ambush in the graveyard for nearly a month. When they were lucky, they would even encounter a few passers-by. Suddenly, a burning smell came from behind his ear. He was suspicious. "Big brother Zhou, behind you." His companion beside him let out a terrifying cry. Zhou Quan turned around to take a look. What he saw almost scared him to death. A fireball was eerily floating behind his head. When he moved slightly, the fireball moved with him. When he took a few steps, the fireball followed suit. What the hell? Boom! 5 or 6 fireballs suddenly floated above the graveyard. Every fireball seemed to have eyes as they crazily chased after the bandits. Ghost. There's a ghost. The bandits didn't care that they were in a graveyard. They scrambled and rushed forward. Rushing to the intersection ahead, he suddenly saw 2 people, one tall and one short. The man, who had lost an arm, was glaring at them with a murderous glare. The short girl looked at them with a smile. Under the firelight, the young girl's face was incomparably exquisite, and the dimples at the corner of her mouth were extremely sweet. She was holding a magic scepter in her hand. With a wave of her magic scepter, the 5 or 6 fireballs disappeared. Yo. So it was you guys who did this. Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you're a magician. Jianghu come out and announced the slogan. Only then did Zhou Quan realize that he had been fooled. A short, dark-skinned teenager of 15 or 16 years old jumped out and smoothly recited, "This tree was planted by me, and this road was opened by me. If you want to pass through here, Zhou Quan and Wang Qiangzi of the Yun family army?" Yun Songlong shouted coldly. "Yes. Yes." Upon hearing the dignified question, Zhou Quan and Qiangzi stood at attention and saluted as if it was a conditioned reflex, looking straight ahead. Cheng Su and I Koan of the Yun family. "Yes. Yes." With Yun Songlong's shout, the bandits all stepped out of their ranks. After a while, the bandits were all shocked. "Big brother Zhou, something doesn't seem right. How did that person know our names? It was dark just now, so we didn't see what the man looked like. Why don't you go up and take a look?" The bandits were frightened out of their wits by Yun Songlong's powerful shout. They pushed and shoved, and in the end Zhou Quan was pushed to the front. If it wasn't dark, Yun Sheng would definitely see that Yun Songlong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He was a member of the Yun family army, yet he was actually committing a robbery on the side of the road, and it was in front of his own niece. Zhou Quan dawdled and walked in front of Yun Songlong. This guy was still afraid of death. He actually lit a match and moved closer to Yun Songlong to take a look. That face, that expression, Zhou Quan's mind was suddenly struck by lightning. His legs went soft and the match almost burned his eyebrows. "General, it's young General Yun." 4 to 5 uncouth men, all of whom were no less than 1.75 meters tall, uniformly knelt on the ground. Their knees went soft and with 5 thuds they all knelt on the ground. "All of you don't have to play dead. Speak, who gave you permission to rob here? How many robberies did you make? How much money did you rob? Tell me everything. If there is even the slightest lie, you will be punished according to military law." The news of Yun Songlong's return to the Yun family army was only spread among a small group of soldiers and generals. Tonight, the people who robbed Yun Sheng and the others were from different squads belonging to the Yun family army. The few of them did not expect that the robbery would actually involve their own general. "General, we didn't have any other choice." These soldiers' faces were red as they reported all the robberies in the past month. Ever since Yun Songxue cut off the Yun family army's salaries, they were all so poor that they couldn't afford to eat. Yun Songlong also didn't appear. These people were all Yun Songlong's former subordinates. They weren't willing to betray the Yun family army, nor were they willing to change jobs. However, every soldier had parents, wives, children, and children. Helpless, they could only become unorthodox. "Nonsense, you've violated the imperial law." After Yun Songlong learned the truth, his face became gloomy. He led the army strictly, and what he disliked the most was the soldiers' misdeeds. His subordinates knowingly broke the law and their crimes were unforgivable. The soldiers didn't dare to make a sound. Yun Songlong hadn't appeared for many years, but his prestige still remained. No soldier dared to make a sound in front of him. Second uncle, although these soldiers were in the wrong, they also said that they only robbed some money and never harmed anyone's life. Please don't blame them. Yun Sheng was touched by the soldiers' persistence. "Sheng, you don't know how to manage an army. Knowingly breaking the law is a serious crime. If their actions are reported to the imperial court, only death awaits them." Yun Songlong was dissatisfied with his niece's soft-heartedness. "Second uncle, Civilians have no choice but to break the law because they're starving. Only death awaits them. Is it not illegal for the military to sit idly by and wait for the families of these soldiers to starve to death? Yun Xing didn't agree with Yun Songlong's pedantic way of doing things. She walked in front of the soldiers. These 5-foot-tall men were like little wives in front of her second uncle. They were so timid, it was clear how important Yun Songlong was in their hearts. "Uncle, you're called Zhou Quan, right? Let me ask you, did you go to the Yun residence to ask for your salary when you didn't receive it?" "We did, but we were chased out." Zhou Quan sighed. "Then did you go to the military to seek help?" According to Zhou state's laws, soldiers in the military could go to the military to seek help if they were hungry. The Marquis of Jiyuan said that we are the Yun family's private army and are not under the jurisdiction of the military. If the military doesn't care and the Yun residence doesn't care, then it's really unloved. "Second uncle, if it were you, what would you do?" Yun Sheng looked at her second uncle with a straight face. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Qing Shang Yuanzin tipping as vicious as poppies. Chapter 229. When Yun Songlong heard Yun Sheng's question, how could he not be shocked? He never thought that these brothers who had once risked their lives for the country would not even be able to receive the most basic relief. It was hard for him to reprimand them. Yun Songlong only felt as if there was a heavy rock pressing down on his heart, and he could not say another word. The oppressive atmosphere quickly spread among the crowd. Yun Sheng's words also made Yun Songlong realize something. The Yun family army currently had more than 1,000 soldiers. Their future, as well as how they were going to feed their families, were all problems. "Second uncle, it is inevitable that the Yun family army will change jobs. I see that these brothers are all strong and healthy. If they become professional hunters, it would not be a bad idea." Yun Sheng had also seen the basic qualities of the soldiers in the Yun family army encampment. Other than the majority of them having a good foundation in martial arts, there were no less than 100 martial artists like Zhou Quan. There were also some who had some magic perception. These people were all soldiers in their early years and were strictly disciplined. As long as Yun Songlong gave the order, charging and breaking through enemy lines would not be a problem. If such a large group of people were not properly settled, they would definitely become an unpredictable factor. They would even be used against the Yun family by other people within Zhou state. It would be a good idea to turn them into hunters and form a hunting corps. Hunters. Yun Songlong could not help but frown. Changing a regular army into a hunting regiment, this idea was simply ridiculous. As long as we can eat, we don't have to go against our conscience and we can continue to follow General Yun, not to mention being hunters, we are even willing to be beggars. Zhou Quan and the others felt their minds clear up after being reminded by Yun Sheng. They had really been blinded by lard. If they did not want to be bandits, they could be hunters. A hunter's income would also be stable and enough to feed their families. Regarding this matter, I will discuss it with the generals in the encampment tomorrow and come to a conclusion. The few of you will receive your punishment yourselves. Each of you will receive 50 strokes of the cane. Yun Songlong was still thinking about Yun Sheng's words. Although Yun Sheng was still a child, Yun Songlong also realized that his niece was not simple. Perhaps she was right. Yun Sheng returned to the medicine hall. As soon as she entered the door, she saw Qi waiting there. "What a rare guest. Why did you come to see me?" Since she let Abandon taste the medicine, Abandon hadn't come to see Yun Sheng again. Abandon was still wearing a green cloak. Under the dim yellow light, one could see that his emerald green eyes were emitting a faint glow. "Could it be that you've thought it through and agreed to let me treat your poison?" Yun Sheng poured herself a glass of water and drank it. When Yun Sheng saw that Chiamo was silent, she knew that this twisted kid had finally figured it out. The poison in Chi's body was getting worse by the day. Although he didn't know where it came from, if he didn't treat it, it would definitely cause great damage to his body. "If you can guarantee that you won't cripple my poison skills, I can let you treat me." Chiamo glanced at Yun Sheng. Under the light, Yun Sheng was slim and elegant. She was completely different from the little girl he first met 2 years ago. Chiamo felt his heart skip a beat. Thinking of Yi Baiming that day, that man who was like the king of the night, Chiamo's decision in his heart became even firmer. "I can't guarantee it. Tell me first. What's the deal with the poison and magic in your body?" Yun Sheng had long realized that the Dharma soul in Chiamo's body was different from any Dharma soul she knew. There were a few common Dharma souls in the boundless land: earth, wind, water, fire, light, darkness, and many other secondary Dharma souls. Chi Mo's Dharma soul was obviously different from any of them. Even Teacher Mary couldn't tell what the magic attribute of Chi Mo's Dharma soul was. The magic that Chi Mo cultivated didn't belong to any element of magic. His magic was more of his own creation. The most powerful thing about it was the various poisons. I don't have a Dharma soul. The reason why I can use magic is because of little Qing. Chi Mo found it difficult to tell his secret. As he spoke, a green snake slithered out from the bottom of his wide magic cloak. That was Chi Mo's magic scepter, a living snake. Maybe you've realized that my magic cultivation speed is especially fast. Actually, it's not because my magic cultivation speed is fast, but because of the poison that little Qing swallowed. Yun Xing only found out from Chi Mo's mouth that Chi Mo actually had such a unique way of cultivating magic. That was to use the toxicity of poison to improve his magic cultivation. Chi Mo was an abandoned baby from the moment he was born. When he still had memories, he was already living with this green snake called Little Qing. I accidentally discovered that Little Qing was a magical beast, and I could use its Dharma soul to cultivate. Little Qing's method of cultivation was to use poison. From the initial poisonous grass to the poisonous magical beast, and then to the refined poison. It was also because of Little Qing's special cultivation method that Chi Mo came to the Royal Magic Academy. Other people came to the Royal Magic Academy to cultivate magic, but Chi Mo's only purpose in coming to the Royal Magic Academy was to find various kinds of highly toxic poisons. And in the Magic Academy he met Teacher Mary, who was also an oddball from the potions department. Teacher Mary was the first person to know about my special situation. She was very kind. Not only did she accept me as her student, she also provided me with some herbs that could cure the poison. Like you, she also advised me to give up on cultivating poison, but I had to maintain my magic power. Chi Mo gently stroked Little Qing, who was coiled up on his arm and spitting out its tongue comfortably. Because Little Qing was a magical beast, it had been hunted down by a few summoners with ulterior motives. Chi Mo also almost lost his life at the hands of those summoners. In order to protect Little Qing, his poison cultivation became the only way for him to protect Little Qing and himself. I see. Let me take a look. How's the spread of the poison? Yun Xing only understood Chi Mo's difficulties after hearing this. A magical beast that could increase its magic power by consuming poison was definitely very rare on the continent. It would easily attract the covetous of some summoners with ill intentions. No wonder Chi Mo had insisted on rejecting her request the last time. But why did he change his mind after a few months? Yun Xing was puzzled. Yun Xing naturally didn't know that Chi Mo's current actions were because he had developed feelings for her. And Yi Baiming's appearance gave Chi Mo a pressure that he had never felt before. She carefully checked Chi Mo's pulse and took some of Chi Mo's blood samples, deciding to do a thorough examination. Yun Xing and Chi Mo didn't notice that when Chi Mo was explaining his situation, a strange expression flashed across the green jade-like eyes of the little green snake coiled around his arm. I still need to do a thorough examination of your blood. You go back first. I'll inform you when I think of a solution. After Yun Xing sent Chi Mo off, the deputy curator coincidentally walked in with a smile. Chapter 230. As Chi was leaving, he coincidentally bumped into Battle Force. Even though he was the deputy curator, Chi did not even greet him. He looked straight ahead and left. In reality, other than his companions in Group 13 and his mentor, Mei Li, Chi had never looked at anyone. This could be related to the fact that he was an orphan since young and was not very close to others. That kid is your companion? I remember that he is also from the Royal Magic Academy. He looks quite evil. Battle Force took a few more glances at Chi. Even if he met this youth, he would feel a chill run down his spine. That feeling was as if he was being stared at by an extremely powerful demonic beast. There were very few people who could make Battle Force, a Wu Zong, feel this way, so Battle Force had some impression of Chi. He is my companion, Deputy Curator Chi. It is not a good habit to speak ill of others behind their backs. Yun Xing did not like to hear other people criticize her friends. Pretend I didn't say anything. Miracle Dr. Yun, the inventory of the medicine hall has been completed. Here are some ledgers, please check them first. Battle Force knew Yun Sheng's temper. He had already found out from Yun Songhai that Yun Sheng was Yun Songhai's daughter. It had to be said that this girl's temper was typical of the Yun family. Once she set her mind on someone or something, even 10 carriages would not be able to pull her back. Also, here are 2 sect tokens. One is to thank you for becoming an elder of the medicine hall, and the other is to thank you for curing Canglong's illness. Battle Force was a man who kept his promises. He had promised Yun Xing that he would give her a sect token, but the second one was an extra gift. I will accept the first sect token, but I cannot accept the second one. Second uncle is my family, it is my duty to treat him. Yun Xing rejected Battle Force's good intentions. Second uncle Yun was Battle Force's good friend, but also her own family. If her father knew that she had to accept a reward for treating her second uncle, he would be so angry that he would crawl out of bed. Zhanli couldn't help but smile. The longer he knew Yun Xing, the more he liked her. Sometimes she was calculative and wouldn't even let go of a small advantage, but sometimes she was very generous. However, this was also Yun Xing's greatest charm. Such a person could easily attract a group of close friends. Yun Xing ponders for a while. But if Deputy Director Zhan wants to repay me, why don't you do me a favor? I may not be able to stay in the pharmacy for a while. You must have heard about what happened to the Yun family army. I'm also a hunter myself, so I'm thinking of helping second uncle reorganize the Yun family army after I'm done with the medicinal hall. Part of the reason why Combat Strength came today was because of the Yun family army. Combat Strength knew about the Yun family army. It was just that he had estimated Yun Canglong's illness, so he had not revealed his combat strength. That's fine too. Canglong and I have already given up on the Imperial Court after the last battle. It's impossible for us to stay in the army. Combat Strength pondered for a moment. Unexpectedly, he didn't oppose changing the Yun family army into a hunter corps. Combat Strength was originally from the grassroots. After he became the deputy director of Wuxia Wuji Library, he had some contact with hunters. If it wasn't for Yun Ba's persuasion, his most likely path would have been to become a hunter. When Yun Xing heard Combat Strength's tone, she also knew that something was wrong. She had also heard people say that Combat Strength was a fierce general of Zhou State in his early years. He and Yun Canglong were once known as the twin heroes of Zhou State. Both of them were martial artists. When they were less than 30 years old, they had already broken through to martial marquis. However, in a battle, one of them retired and the other was crippled. However, in front of others, Combat Strength had never mentioned the defeat that year. What exactly happened? Deputy Director, I've always wanted to ask why my second uncle was defeated that year. I've always been thinking, how did his hand get injured? Yun Xing saw that Combat Strength had sunk into deep thought, so she took the opportunity to ask. Your second uncle, he was deceived by a woman. I don't know the specifics of the matter. I only know that at that time, we were attacked by the allied forces of Later Qin and Tang Yuan. Breaking out of the encirclement is imperative. Combat Strength's expression was agitated. He had been the deputy director of Wuxia Wuji Library for many years and had cultivated himself well. However, at this moment, he couldn't help but be filled with righteous indignation. His words were filled with resentment. That year, Zhou State and the allied forces of Tang and Qin were at war at the southern border of Zhou State. Yun Canglong and Combat Strength led the army into battle. When the two of them worked together, they were like a hot knife through butter, killing countless enemies along the way. However, Later Qin was sinister. One night, the army's medical personnel actually poisoned the water supply. Zhou State's army wasn't poisoned. When Yun Canglong saw this, he ordered a group of soldiers to break out of the encirclement. At that time, according to the army's map, Yun Canglong and Combat Strength believed that if they broke out from the north, there would be fewer defenders and it would be safer. However, when the Yun family army was about to break out of the encirclement, they suddenly heard that the allied forces of Tang and Qin had gone up north to Zhou State's border cities and massacred them. When Yun Canglong heard this, he knew that the other side might have a large number of troops lying in ambush. However, he still decided to lead 1,000 people to the border cities to break out of the encirclement. No matter how Combat Strength tried to dissuade him, Yun Canglong still insisted on going. Yun Canglong was a calm person and his army had always been well organized. However, that time he seemed to have lost his composure. What was even more hateful was that when we received news that the Yun family army was deep in the south and sent a letter to the court asking for help, the Marquis of Jiyuan didn't move, allowing your second uncle and the Yun family army to fight a bloody battle in the south for 3 days and 3 nights. When your grandfather received the news and sent reinforcements, the Yun family army was almost completely wiped out. When Combat Strength said this, his tiger eyes were already filled with tears. After Yun Ba rushed over, he was alone. At the age of 60, he killed his way into the southern cities with a giant axe. He broke through the heavy encirclement and killed more than 1,000 soldiers of the allied forces of Tang and Qin. At that time, the southern cities were filled with mountains of corpses and seas of bones. When the martial saint appeared, even the allied forces of Tang and Qin had to retreat. When Yun Ba rushed out with Yun Songlong, whose right arm had been chopped off and his left arm crippled, combat strength and a group of old subordinates, thousands of 7-foot-tall men, wept bitterly. My second uncle is a true man. Even though it had been many years, Yun Xing still felt her blood boil when she heard combat strength talk about the past. Yun Songlong might have been rash, but he had inherited the Yun family army's motto. If he didn't serve the people, how could he be a soldier? Since then, many of the Zhou state soldiers led by combat strength were extremely disappointed with the Zhou state's imperial army. They chose to retire early and leave the army camp. When Yun Ba found out that combat strength wanted to leave the army camp, he went to persuade him. He knew that combat strength no longer had the heart to bathe in blood on the battlefield for the country. In the end, he could only persuade combat strength, your army's morale is already dead, but your martial spirit is still there. Zhou State's army camp is weak, but Zhou State's thousands of martial artists are still standing strong. The future of Zhou State does not rely on the army camp, but on the thousands of martial artists. After combat strength received some guidance, he was recommended to enter Wushuan Wuji Martial Arts Institute and became the deputy head of Wushuan Wuji Martial Arts Institute. As for Yun Songlong, after that battle, his body was crippled and his will was dispirited. He was trapped by his battle trauma and had been hiding in the Yun residence. It was only when Yun Sheng appeared that the situation took a turn for the better. Chapter 231. Deputy Curator Xing still doesn't understand one thing. Back then, second uncle didn't listen to our advice and led the army to defend the city. However, the Yun family army only had a little more than 1,000 people, while the Tang and Qin allied forces numbered in the tens of thousands. How did second uncle survive those 3 days and 3 nights before old General Yun arrived? Yun Sheng was also somewhat puzzled. Later Qin and Tang Yuan were both tigers and wolves. They were fully prepared, so how could they not take down the city for so long? Not only me but even your grandfather. Old General Yun is also puzzled about this. Yun Ba and Zhan Li both thought that Yun Songlong had died in battle. Now that you mention it, I remember that when I led my former subordinates to break out of the encirclement from the north, I heard a faintly discernible sound of a zither in the south. That sound was faintly discernible and lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Many years had passed, so Zhan Li's memory was not that clear. As for whether that sound was real or fake, Zhan Li wasn't sure either. The Dihong song. Yun Sheng was certain that someone must have been playing the Dihong song at that time. Look at me. Why am I telling you all these old stories? I'm here today mainly for the medicinal hall. Zhan Li coughed. Half a month had passed since Elder Zhang's fall from power. The medicinal hall had also completed the most preliminary inventory. Zhan Li had come to give Yun Sheng an inventory list, which listed most of the medicinal hall's assets, medicinal herbs, and some of Elder Zhang's personal wealth. Although Elder Zhang's character wasn't very good, it had to be said that as a person he definitely had his good points. The old man's ability to accumulate wealth was unparalleled. When he fled that day, he was in a hurry and left the huge amount of wealth that he had accumulated over the years in the medicinal hall's secret chamber. After Zhan Li led people to search, they took away the gold coins and some of the more expensive medicinal herbs. However, they also found 10 storage rings in the secret chamber. There was a personal seal placed on the storage ring. Looking at combat strength, other than Elder Zhang, no one else could break it. If he forcefully broke the seal, the things inside the ring would be destroyed. Thus, combat strength casually threw the storage ring to the side. After exchanging a few more words with Yun Sheng, Zhan Li suddenly remembered something. Since we're going to establish a hunter corps, we definitely need manpower. How about this? I'll assign Yi Baiming and Cheng Bai to you. If you need anything, just let me know. There's no need to inform me. It's getting late, so I'll take my leave first. When Yun Sheng heard this, she did not refuse. After all, Yi Baiming and Cheng Bai were 2 great generals. She had to make good use of them. Seeing that Zhan Li had left, Yun Sheng immediately took back the few storage rings that he had casually thrown away. To other people, the seals on the storage rings could not be broken. However, this was not the case for Yun Sheng. She had the puffed egg in her hands. The puffed egg could break all magical seals and restrictions. Yun Sheng summoned the puffed egg and very smoothly broke the seals on the 10 storage rings. She then looted a lot of things from the rings. Looking at the pair of items, Yun Xing instantly felt a sense of ecstasy, as if she had become rich overnight. Among the 10 storage rings, there were 10 anonymous limitless gold cards. Each card had 50,000 limitless gold coins. These were all obtained by Elder Zhang when he accepted bribes from the students or embezzled money from the medicinal herb suppliers. In addition, there were 2 limitless purple gold cards. There were 200,000 limitless purple gold cards each. If converted to the continent's gold coins, that would be 2 million gold coins. However, the gold coins were not the most important thing. Yun Xing also found a large amount of precious medicinal herbs. Among them, there were even saint-grade medicinal herbs. It could be seen that Elder Zhang had put in a lot of effort to get these things. Yun Xing was not polite. She stuffed all the limitless gold cards and medicinal herbs into her beast language ring. After the establishment of the Xiantong, they needed to purchase a large number of medicinal herbs. As a result, the wealth in the 10 storage rings was particularly precious. After carefully examining the 10 storage rings, Yun Xing found a prescription in the last storage ring. That prescription was placed together with the limitless purple gold card. It looked like a very ordinary prescription. However, if it was placed together with the limitless purple gold card, then it must not be an ordinary prescription. Yun Xing carefully looked at it. The words "Sage 10,000 Golden Pill" entered her eyes. 10,000 golden pill? The implication was that a 10,000 golden pill was worth 10,000 gold coins. Moreover, it was very likely that it was worth 10,000 purple gold coins. Yun Xing's eyelids jumped. On the continent, even high-grade and finished products were only worth 1,000 gold coins. This prescription, was it possible that it was a top-grade or even a saint-grade medicinal pill? Yun Xing continued to look at the ingredients of the prescription. Sage 10,000 leaves and yellow lotus jade. Prescription effect: repair magic soul, regrow severed limbs? When she saw the words, Yun Xing's eyes lit up. Regrow severed limbs? Yun Xing immediately thought of her second uncle Yun Songlong. She didn't expect that she would find such a magical prescription in Elder Zhang's storage ring. But why didn't Elder Zhang refine this kind of medicine? Yun Xing looked at the ingredients one by one. After looking at them, she couldn't help but bitterly smile. It was no wonder that a single sage herb myriad gold pill was worth 10,000 purple gold coins. Just the 6-leaf sage herb alone was already a huge problem. The medicinal herbs on the continent were divided into mortal grade, treasure grade, top grade, saint grade, and divine grade. The corresponding medicinal pills refined from them were primary grade, middle grade, high grade, saint grade, and divine grade. Treasure grade medicinal herbs weren't hard to find in Jade Capital. The medicinal hall of Wushuan Limitless building that Yun Xing was in also had the corresponding medicinal herbs. However, medicinal herbs above saint grade, or even saint grade, were rarely seen. Sage 10,000 leaves was a saint-grade medicinal herb. Legend had it that sage 10,000 leaves gathered moonlight and water elements in a cold place to form a magical medicine. It took 100 years to germinate, and after that it would grow a leaf every 100 years. A sage 10,000 leaves that was used to refine sage 10,000 leaves would have at least 6 leaves. That meant that only sage 10,000 leaves that were 600 years old and above could refine sage 10,000 leaves. Yun Xing had also inquired about it before. In the past few years, sage 10,000 leaves that were above 6th grade had appeared in the vicinity of later Qin Sunset City. Furthermore, it was already over 100 years ago. Elder Zhang had also obtained this prescription by chance. It was also because he didn't have the ingredients that he didn't refine this kind of medicinal pill. Looks like I still have to look around and get Dr. Fan and Wanlong Gambling House to help. Yun Xing could only put the prescription aside for the time being. In the next few days, Yun Xing began to tidy up the medicinal hall. She stored the beast blood solvent once again, and the female martial artists from outside the hall started to fuse the beast blood together with acupuncture. Including the Oriole, the new batch of female martial artists who had entered the hall all obtained pretty good results after fusing the beast blood for the first time. Most of them had their bones and marrow cleansed, greatly increasing their physique. However, there was still a small group of people, especially the Oriole, who surprised Yun Xing the most. The Oriole was originally just an ordinary person who had roughly cultivated battle chi, but after fusing with the beast blood, the Oriole actually broke through the most basic martial student and advanced to the peak of martial warrior. Seeing that the effects of the beast blood solvent were so good, Yun Xing also decided to use this method on the Yun family army. After considering it for a few days, Yun Songlong finally felt that Yun Xing's suggestion was good. Reorganizing the Yun family army into hunting troops was the most reliable method. After Yun Xing heard this, she decided to cooperate with Yun Songlong to tidy up the Yun family army. Chapter 232. After knowing that Yun Xing was going to start reorganizing the Yun army, Oriol also volunteered to head to the Yun army. Hearing that young General Yun had returned, the soldiers of the Yun army were all excited. They all swarmed to the entrance of the encampment. "Everyone, long time no see. I'm back." Yun Songlong looked at the faces of his old subordinates, his heart filled with emotion. "General Yun, it's good that you're back. As long as you're still here, we will follow you to death." Everyone spoke one after another, looking very excited. Yun Xing carefully sized them up and quickly saw the basic structure of the Yun family army. Most of these people had followed Yun Songlong in the past, so most of them were in their 30s or 40s. There were also some who had just joined the army and were in their 20s. In the entire camp, there were about 200 to 300 soldiers in their 20s, 400 to 500 soldiers in their 30s or 40s, and the rest were veterans in their 40s who were about the same age as Oriol's father. Because they had not been paid for many years, other than people like Zhou Quan who knew how to be flexible, the rest were all thin and looked very frail. "Everyone quiet down. I'm here today to announce a piece of news. I'm sure you all know that I've left the Yun residence. For everyone's future livelihood, I've thought about it and decided to disband the Yun army." Yun Songlong's voice fell. The group of soldiers who were originally cheering were instantly dumbfounded. From the initial joy, it turned into fury. "We don't want to disband. How can the Yun residents disband us?" There were even more furious soldiers who wanted to step forward and question Yun Songlong. It was no wonder that the soldiers were so agitated. Most of them had been soldiers for 3 generations and were all part of the Yun army. Back then, when they were defeated, many of their brothers and fathers had died on the battlefield. The reason why they never abandoned the Yun family army was because of the concept that had been formed over the years. They were born as members of the Yun family army, and they would die as ghosts of the Yun family army. These people came wave after wave, making it impossible for Yun Songlong to finish his words. When Yun Xing saw this, she waved the magic scepter in her hand. In an instant, a fiery explosion smashed into the camp like thunder from the 9th heaven. Everyone was silent. Only then did they notice that there were 2 girls who came with General Yun. One of them looked unfamiliar, while the other was Huang Xiaowei's daughter, Oriol. "Oriol, why are you with them? And what's the matter with that female magician?" The soldiers were shocked by Yun Xing. But what surprised them even more was the Oriol. Most of the children who grew up in the military camp were very familiar with it. It could be said that many people here had watched the Oriol grow up. Previously, she was a sallow and emaciated girl from a poor family who had to go out to sing. However, after not seeing her for half a month, she had completely changed. She was taller and more muscular. The most surprising thing was that she was wearing a white warrior's robe. That was the martial arts robe of Wushuan Limitless School. "Uncles, brothers, please calm down and listen to what General Yun has to say." Oriol was now a warrior. She was no longer the shy singer she used to be. She puffed out her chest and persuaded loudly. "Brothers, I'm sorry. It's been hard on you all these years." Yun Songlong bowed deeply to the crowd. "General Yun, General, don't be like this. Brothers." The soldiers also choked with tears in their eyes. The Yun family army was once glorious, but they did not expect the Yun family army to fall to such a state. "Everyone, there's no need to be sad. Second uncle said that he wants to disband the Yun family army, but it's not a true disbandment. We plan to change the Yun family army into a hunting corps." Yun Xing said. She suddenly opened her mouth. Everyone was stunned. Then they heard her call Yun Songlong second uncle? Changed to a hunting corps? From soldiers to hunters, most of the people in the Yun family army were unable to accept this result. "We don't want to be hunters. Hunters are bandits and hooligans. We are regular soldiers. How can we be compared to those hooligans?" Someone muttered in dissatisfaction. "Hunters earn money by doing missions. They were used to eating the food of the country." For a moment, they were unable to accept this change. "Who said that hunters are bandits and hooligans? Do you know how much a normal D-rank hunter in Zhou State earns in a year? 50 gold coins. If you reach C rank, you'll earn at least 100 gold coins. If you join the hunting corps, you can even get bonus." Yun Xing had been with Huang Teng and the other 2 for a while. She was very familiar with the market for hunters. Hearing that hunters earned such a high salary, some people hesitated. They had suffered in the Yun family army for many years. Which family wasn't poor? So what if the salary is high? Hunters can't get promoted. Being a soldier is different. It's something that brings honor to the family. Some people still disagreed. In the end, these soldiers were still not enlightened. Yun Songlong frowned. This was a little tricky. If everyone disagreed, the plan to change the Yun family army into a hunting corps would have to be aborted. Brothers, Yun Songlong said in a low voice. So what if I get promoted? You're all good brothers who have gone through fire and water with me. You've seen what happened to me. I, Yun Songlong, was born in Zhou State's Marshal St. General's mansion. For the first 10 years my career was smooth, but I've never felt that it was an honor. Because I know that the higher my rank, the more brothers' blood will be spilled on the battlefield. Yun Songlong let out a long sigh. Everyone in the Yun residence and your brothers and uncles defended the city to the death. In the end, we didn't manage to wait for the reinforcements from Zhou State. My second uncle has been recuperating in the residence for many years. The Emperor of Zhou State has never visited him. The military has also never given any subsidies to the veterans. Yun Sheng took the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. Don't tell me that your sons and daughters will also be spilled on the battlefield for Zhou State in the future? Batch after batch, they shed their blood for Zhou State, only to end up with nothing in the end? Yun Sheng's words became the last straw that crushed the hearts of the Yun family army. Uncles, brothers, Oriol's father was injured on the battlefield and hasn't recovered. Oriol knows that many of my aunts and sisters can't go out to sing or even sell their bodies because of this. Oriol wiped the corners of her eyes. Yun Sheng, who was watching from the side, gave her a thumbs up. In modern times, Oriol's acting skills were definitely Oscar material for the Best Supporting Actress. Stop talking. Zhou Quan was the first to jump out. They say that a real man has to have a country first and a family second. 2ef*** K off. If you have a country and a family, if you can't even protect a small family, how can you talk about a country? Leave these pompous words to those dog-like officials and nobles who live in a drunken stupor. We're going to be hunters. General Yun is the commander. Everyone, don't you think so? Zhou Quan and the others shouted in unison. Thank you for Lanlin's tip ***. Chapter 233. As Yun Xing watched, no matter how she looked at it, it felt like she was forcing a good girl into prostitution and becoming an outlaw. But at least she had achieved her goal. Wait a moment, the Yun family army has changed into the hunting corps. My second uncle is the regiment commander, that's right. But not everyone can become a hunter. We need to eliminate the weak. Among all of you, only those who can meet the basic requirements can join the newly established hunting corps. When Yun Xing said this, the hunters who had already calmed down immediately became agitated again. Where did this little girl come from? She's making a racket in our Yun family army. When we were risking our lives on the battlefield, you were still playing in the mud. The soldiers cursed. Zhou Quan, who was at the side, anxiously scratched his head. If not for the fact that Yun Sheng called Yun Songlong's second uncle, who knew what dirty jokes would have come out of this group of boorish men's mouths? When Zhou Quan heard this, his hair stood on end. Oh no, this group of people who didn't fear death, they still didn't know the power of this little fiend from the Yun family. I know you guys are not convinced. I forgot to tell you guys, second uncle is your regiment commander, and I will be your vice regiment commander from now on. Whoever is not convinced, come out and compete. The opponent is the Oriole. I forgot to mention she is the first female hunter that our regiment has just recruited. Yun Xing placed the Oriole in front of everyone. Oriole? Wasn't that the daughter of Huang Xiaowei's family? How could such a lass who couldn't even carry a weapon be a hunter? The soldiers instantly regained their strength. If even the Oriole could become a hunter, what were they worried about? They were the Yun family army after all, and had killed people in their early years and gone onto the battlefield. Let's compete. As long as we win, we'll be considered victorious, right? A few tall and burly middle-aged soldiers with dark faces walked out. I'll give you two choices. The first is called the weighted horse riding stance. Anyone who can defeat the Oriole can stay and become a hunter. The second one is called bone marrow cleansing. I have a special beast blood solvent here that can improve one's physique. If you can successfully pass the bone marrow cleansing, you can still stay. Yun Sheng explained the recruitment rules of the hunting corps in a few words. The hunting corps did not raise useless people. The Yun family army had more than 1,000 people, so it was inevitable that only the fittest would survive. The hunters were stimulated by Yun Sheng. Thinking that they still had 2 more chances, they all became excited. Among all the choices, the easiest one was undoubtedly the first one, which was to compete with the Oriole in the horse-riding stance. How difficult could it be to stand in the horse stance? Back when they were new recruits, which one of them didn't stand out? Little girl Oriole, let's have a match. A group of Yun family soldiers surrounded Oriole. The Oriole smiled and calmly took out the 50-kilogram iron sandbag that he had brought from the Wuxia Limitless School. In less than an hour, there were already over 100 people lying on the floor of the Yun family's military base. The Oriole neatly stopped and exhaled. His face was full of energy. The Yun family soldiers all sucked in a breath of cold air. Strange, too strange. It seemed that the first choice was not feasible. That little girl Oriole actually had a cultivation level higher than that of a martial scholar. They had really misjudged him this time. Deputy Commander, let's choose bone marrow cleansing. Another group of people quickly surrounded Yun Sheng. Yun Sheng smiled and took out a bottle of red beast blood solution. Seeing the red liquid, the Oriole's face flashed with a trace of reluctance. Poor uncles and big brothers. Should she tell them that bone marrow cleansing was the worst thing of all? The beast blood solution that Yun Sheng had improved was undoubtedly much more effective and successful. However, the improvement of the medicine also brought about a considerable side effect. The process of bone marrow cleansing was incomparably painful. It was as if there were 10,000 needles piercing the body. Only those with a will as strong as iron could endure it. Another hour passed. Within the Yun family army, there was a burst of wailing and howling. In just one day, the Yun family army that had originally numbered more than 1,000 was reduced to just over 200 people. These people had either persevered through the horse-riding stance or had gone through the painful bone marrow cleansing, opening up all the meridians and do qi in their bodies and breaking through to martial scholars. Seeing that they had passed the test, everyone's brows were raised in joy. You all thought that what you did just now was already very good, right? Wrong, very wrong. Everything that you went through just now, Oriole and I have already gone through several months ago. Those who could not persevere through it are the real sickly men who are even worse than women. Yun Sheng's expression was serious, and her words were full of dignity. His joy and relief immediately vanished into thin air. They had been busy for half a day, but they could not even compare to 2 little girls. Among all of you, we will choose another 50 people to be official members. The remaining 150 people will be reserve members. As for how to choose, the process is very simple. Each of you will bring a bottle of hemostatic medicine and a weapon to enter the Lamar Hills in the northwest. Anyone who can kill a 4th-level magical beast can become an official member. Official members will have the opportunity to obtain a set of Wuxia Limitless School's battle techniques. After Yun Sheng finished speaking, she prepared a set of weapons and hemostatic medicine and gave them to everyone. Without rations or water, they would enter the Lamar Hills in the western part of Zhou State, which was known as the Death Hill. Even Yun Songlong did not know about Yun Sheng's decision. He originally thought that there would be someone among the soldiers who would stand out to refute her, but to Yun Songlong's surprise, no one stood out. They silently took the weapons and hemostatic medicine. 10 people in a row, a total of 20 rows, and headed towards the northwest. They were not idiots. Although the horse-riding stance and bone marrow cleansing was extremely difficult, they all discovered that during this process, the do qi in their bodies had increased by a large amount in a short period of time. They wanted to survive. They wanted to become the hunting corps that would shock Zhou State and even the entire continent. Everything that happened today was just the beginning. A month later, when the 200 Yun family soldiers who looked like beggars returned to their encampment, their clothes were ragged and their bodies were covered with all kinds of wounds. However, their eyes were as bright as snow, emitting a radiance that was not inferior to that of wild beasts. The soldiers who were still guarding the encampment almost could not recognize them. In an orderly manner, the 200 people, without exception, brought the 4th-level magical beasts they brought back to Yun Sheng and Yun Songlong. None of the 200 people died. All of them completed their mission. They knelt down in unison, their movements were orderly and uniform. Their voices pierced through the sea of clouds. General Yun. Young Master Yun, we are back. In an instant, the Yun family encampment was filled with thunderous cheers from top to bottom. After 8 years, the Yun family army that had been silent for a long time was disbanded. A new hunting corps named Sky Attack was quietly registered and established in Zhou State's hunting corps. Chapter 234. Not long after the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps was established, Yun Songlong changed the way everyone addressed him in order to avoid suspicion. Everyone called him Regiment Leader Yun. Yun Xing also had another nickname in the hunting corps. It wasn't some vice regiment leader. Behind their backs, all the hunters called Yun Xing Young Master Yun. Yun Xing's previous training made the entire hunting corps fearful of her. The regiment leader was the lord, so the vice regiment leader was naturally Young Master Yun. If the regiment leader was angry, they would be punished according to military law. But if Young Master Yun was angry, the consequences would be severe. Not long after the hunting corps was established, everyone couldn't wait to register their names in the Hunters Guild to accept missions. But after a long time, the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps still hadn't received a single mission. This made the hunters who originally thought that they would be able to start work very quickly feel a little depressed. Yun Xing was used to it. Huang Ting and the other two were on a mission in another country. But when Wenren Xiu found out that Yun Xing wanted to establish a hunting corps, she had already reminded Yun Xing. Before a hunting corps became famous, it would take about 1 to 2 years. This was because the hunting corps also had a process of accumulating fame. Yun Xing mentally prepared herself and secretly gave some money to second uncle. She had already prepared herself to endure for the next 1 to 2 years. Who knew that not long after, there would be an unexpected piece of news. The Sky Expedition Hunting Corps had received a mission, and it was a team mission. After Yun Xing heard this news from the Oriole, she immediately rushed back to the encampment. At the encampment she even met someone unexpected. "Why are the two of you here?" Yun Xing discovered Yi Baiming and Cheng Bai in the encampment. "Hey young Master Yun, these two brothers said that they are your men and are here to support us in completing this mission." Zhou Quan and the rest of the brothers heard Yun Xing's voice and all of them excitedly came out. Zhou Quan's face was filled with excitement. He was the one who had discovered the first mission of the Sky Hunting Corps. If he hadn't been quick enough, such a good mission would have been snatched away by someone else. "We're here to help. Don't you know who issued the mission your hunters just accepted?" Yi Baiming smiled. Combat Strength said that she could send Yi Baiming and Cheng Bai to serve Yun Xing, but Yun Xing admitted that she couldn't move these two big shots, so she didn't invite them over. Who knew that the two of them were also well informed? They had rushed over the moment the hunting squad received their first mission. "Zhou Quan, tell me what's going on with this mission?" Yun Xing also felt that something was amiss. "This is an international mission and the reward is 500 gold coins. The client is a girl, a delicate girl." Zhou Quan chuckled. As usual, he went to the Hunters Guild to see if there were any suitable missions for the hunting squad. Coincidentally, he met a delicate girl who was accompanied by a maid. From her dressing, he could tell that she was a young miss from a wealthy family. That young miss obviously didn't frequent places like the Hunters Guild. She paced back and forth at the entrance for a while but didn't enter. Zhou Quan went forward to ask and found out that the young miss was planning to go to Later Qin to collect a type of medicinal herb. She needed some hunters to escort her. Did the young miss say what type of herb it was? Yun Xing felt that something was amiss. If it was just a normal herb, why would she need to go to Later Qin to collect it? Zhou Quan was most likely tricked by someone. "What's it called again?" "Something leaf something ginseng. I heard that it's a type of herb that grows beside Luoxia City in Later Qin." Zhou Quan was a boor and didn't know many words. He remembered that the young miss took out a picture. "Isn't the herb on the picture purple in color? Does it have many leaves and look similar to ginseng?" Yun Xing's heart thumped as she felt that something was wrong. "Yes, young Master Yun, you're really amazing. It's as if you saw it with your own eyes. It's purple like ginseng." Zhou Quan laughed foolishly. Multi-leafed sage ginseng, this idiot. He actually agreed to help someone find a holy herb. "Don't tell me that you took the initiative to accept the mission?" Yun Xing rubbed her eyebrows. She shouldn't have chosen Zhou Quan to be the liaison for the hunting squad. That young miss gave me 100 gold coins as a deposit and asked me to choose 20 hunters to set off with them. 3 days later we will meet at the East City Gate. After collecting the herb, I will pay the remaining 400 gold coins. Zhou Quan saw that the other party was straightforward and thought about the 20 hunters. After deducting the 100 gold coins, there would still be 400 gold coins left. 20 gold coins per person was quite worth it. After all, Zhou State and Latter Qin were neighbors. That young miss also agreed to cover all the expenses along the way. In Zhou Quan's eyes, this kind of mission was a good deal that fell from the sky. Yun Xing was depressed when she heard this. Only newcomers like the Heaven Expedition Hunting Squad wouldn't know what a 6-leaf sage ginseng was. Moreover, six-leaf sage ginseng might not even appear in Wuxia city. How could a holy herb be collected just because they wanted to? This time Brother Zhou is going to make a big mistake. 20 hunters are far from enough. Do you know the true identity of that young miss? And this time, who exactly is the client behind the scenes? Yi Baiming's face was full of emotions when he heard the whole story. It's that idiot Crown Prince Yi Bailian. As for the person who gave the mission, it's Chen Lian. Qingbai interrupted. What? It was actually that arrogant and idiotic Crown Prince who gave the mission? After Yun Xing heard about the person who gave the mission, she understood that they couldn't escape from this mission. Moreover, Zhou Quan had already accepted the other party's deposit. According to the Hunters Guild's rules, new hunting squads weren't allowed to break the contract after receiving the deposit. If they broke the contract, all the members of the hunting squad would be added to the Hunters Guild's blacklist. In the next 12 months, they wouldn't be allowed to accept any missions. However, while Yun Xing was vexed, she immediately came up with an idea. If the news about the six-leaf sage ginseng was really released by Yi Bailian and Chen Lian, then the news about the purple ginseng in Latter Qin's Luoxia city might be true. Previously, she didn't have any news about the six-leaf sage ginseng. If they could really find the six-leaf sage ginseng, then there might be hope for the sage ginseng 10,000 kilogram pill that could cure second uncle's arm. Night Fox, what exactly is going on? If the Crown Prince wanted to find the herb, why didn't he directly send the army to search for it? Instead, why did he hide it and hire a civilian hunting squad? Yun Xing was very suspicious. We have to start from the blood cloud beast to explain the ins and outs of the matter. We also accidentally found out that the Crown Prince was injured and urgently needed the holy herb sage ginseng that had 6-leafed and above to treat his injury. Yi Baiming finally told Yun Xing the news that he had heard earlier. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.